now, good Friday afternoon. Welcome to a feel-good Friday edition of 580 Sports Talk. I'm Brendan Dworzinski. He's Dan Lucero. We've got 3 hours with you today to talk all things Chiefs, NFL Draft, Royals, what's on tap for the weekend, and so much more. Thank you so much for being a part of the program today. We appreciate you jumping on and spending some time all week and all afternoon with us. And we'll get to all those things I just mentioned and so much more between now and 6 o'clock. We'll start with the Kansas City Chiefs here in just a matter of moments. We've talked so much about the things we think the Chiefs are going to do in the draft, but what kind of surprises might be out there for the Chiefs? What might be the areas in which they say, we're going to buck those trends and we're going to do our own thing and you're going to like it? What might those things be? We'll discuss what that could look like coming up here in just a little bit. I know Jesse Newell, our pal from the Kansas City Star, was on with Jake and Fulton today. And he said he is pretty, not confident, but he's really thinking it's possible the Chiefs end up going with a wide receiver in the first round one way or another because they've tried many times. They wanted to bring back Juju. They were interested in Odell Beckham Jr. multiple times over the course of the last few years. They just haven't ended up landing them. So maybe this is the time they finally go get that wide receiver they really like. So we'll talk about some Chiefs potential draft surprises here in just a matter of moments. Also coming up this hour, we'll talk to Matt Derrick from ChiefsDigest.com, our Chiefs insider, and we'll play some Change My Mind. Later on, we'll get to some Kansas City Royals news. Really sucks that Kris Bubic is done for the year. He is going to need Tommy John surgery. Don't know when the surgery is going to happen, but it was reported by MLB.com today, eventually confirmed by the Royals that Bubic done for the year and will likely be back mid next season, probably, if everything goes according to the normal calendar.
Typically it's a year.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's a year before you're like pitching again, and then you've got to get up to speed and do some facing hitters. Then you got to go do minor league rehab. And I would not, like, optimistically, you'd love to see him back in the big leagues at the start of 2024, more likely the All-Star break.
Yeah. But hey, hopefully he's going to be okay. And man, it really sucks. So what does that mean for this roster going forward? Who does this open the door for? Or alternately, does this actually open the door for anybody? Tonight, the Royals are actually going to start an opener. Taylor Clark is going to open the game. He'll piggyback with Ryan Yarbrough. That'll be your quote-unquote starter for today. So maybe that completely changes things, and the Royals are just going to go with an opener. We'll talk about that later on in the show today. We've got to find our weekly winner in What Is Wrong With You, sponsored by Top City Metal Supply. 5 NFL players were suspended today for gambling either on the league or in league facilities. And here's the amount of sympathy I have for any or all of them. None. You guys are idiots. And we'll talk about that coming up in the 4 o'clock hour. Did you see they let staff members go too? The Lions did, because they were also gambling on games?
Yes.
How dumb are you people? Everybody knows this.
I don't know if they have it on the wall of the locker room like they always did in baseball, but they say, the NFL does, they go over this every year. I would think it would be a very hard thing to miss unless you skip like orientation.
Yeah, you called out sick the day they went through the rules. Come on, man. Just absolutely ridiculous. So we'll get to that later on. We'll tell you what's on tap for the sports weekend. Get to our 580 Sports Talk headlines. There are a bunch of them today. It's all coming up on this Feel Good Friday edition of 580 Sports Talk. Let us know your thoughts on anything we are talking about, either in the text line, 785-272-9429, or you can let us know in the comment section on YouTube. Sports on 580 WIBW is the name of our YouTube channel. But we wanted to get to the Kansas City Chiefs and the NFL draft to open things up today. And like I said moments ago, we have talked so much about what the Chiefs' biggest needs are. And in some order, it is a right tackle, it is a pass catcher, and it is an edge rusher. And we expect all of those things will be filled probably within the first 3 rounds of the draft. Right now, they're at 31, 63, and 95. So whether or not they end up addressing all 3 of those needs with those 3 picks, or, whatever order it ends up being, you would expect those will get filled at some point next week. Maybe within, a week from today, because the first round, a week from yesterday, second and third rounds, a week from today. That is what we expect. That is what we assume, and I think that's what makes the most sense if we're thinking from this logically and, common school of thought and all of that. What if they don't? What if they decide we can get a wide receiver in round 4? What if they decide, you know what, we actually don't love the edges at the end of the first round, early second lane. We really don't like BJ Ojulari or Keon White. We'll wait. We'll find Carl Brooks in the 3rd or 4th. We'll find some late round guys, and we don't worry. Maybe it's the offensive line, where sometimes they've gone early. There's Darian Kennard, who was a 5th round pick last year. Maybe we say, yeah, we'll find someone late. What are they going to do instead if they don't end up filling one of those 3 needs? Or alternately, what if they get really wild with a trade up or a trade down? I think that's possible too. What if, and do I doubt this happens? Of course, I definitely doubt it happens. But say we get to pick 16. Washington Commanders are on the board. And the supposed number 1 receiver in the class is still available. No one's taking Jackson Smith-Njigba. Will Levis fell, and the Patriots took him because they actually hate Mac Jones, which I actually think is true. At least Bill Belichick does. Packers decided to go with defense or Dalton Kincaid or maybe Matthew Meyer. It happens sometimes. Guys slide all the time. He's there at 16. Commanders don't really need a wide receiver. Chiefs say, all right, we'll give you our first, we'll give you our second and a 3rd next year or something. They move up to get him. Possible. If they say we love that guy enough, we'll go get him. Maybe that happens. What would you say if you were told the Chiefs are not going to follow the script, so to speak? What do you think the new script would end up looking like for the Chiefs?
First thing, I'd be startled because I think that the needs that they have are so clear cut that it would be a genuine surprise. Even if I think it would be a genuine surprise if any of their first 3 picks don't follow that line of thinking in some order, that they come out of the first 2 days of the draft with a new pass catcher and a new edge rusher and a new offensive tackle. I would say that is more likely than just about any other scenario for the Chiefs. But that doesn't mean it's 100% likely or even 90% likely necessarily. The positions I look at in this draft that could be appealing for the Chiefs. Number 1 is cornerback. And the Chiefs have done a really good job in the late rounds, obviously, at the cornerback spot. Day 2 and day 3 picks have made big impacts for them. Jalen Watson started a Super Bowl. Josh Williams was a contributing piece last year. Rashad Fenton started in the Super Bowl for them. Charvarius Ward was a late round guy that was actually a trade acquisition, but still day 3 draft pick. L'Jarius Sneed, day 3 draft pick. So the Chiefs have had a lot of success when it comes to finding starting caliber corners late in the draft, but there are a lot of really good cornerbacks in this draft.
There are.
That's a position. I mean, we barely talked about it because we assume the Chiefs are going to roll in next year with McDuffie and Sneed and Watson and Williams and probably call it good. What if they don't call it good? What if they look at this cornerback group and say, hey, we can find somebody who's an upgrade to start on the outside for us? Maybe that would preclude them from having to extend L'Jarius Sneed in the future. That's a contingency plan for a L'Jarius Sneed departure, which not saying that is imminent, but am saying that after next season, he is going to be expensive. So do the Chiefs look at this cornerback class and see the possibility of a Cam Smith or a Julius Brents late for them in the first round and say, hey, we can plug this guy in for the next 4 years, and when we lose L'Jarius Sneed to free agency, because I think it is kind of telling that we haven't heard about contract extension talks between the Chiefs and L'Jarius Sneed. We hear about, restructuring Mahomes. We hear about, doing a long-term deal for Chris Jones and other things that they're going to do financially. Hasn't been a lot of talk about L'Jarius Sneed, even though he is entering year 4, which means he's a free agent after this next season. If the Chiefs look at the cornerback spot and say, we're going to find our L'Jarius Sneed replacement, we are going to find another starting caliber corner, we'll have a surplus next year. Maybe that means Jalen Watson doesn't play as much as he might deserve to play. But then when L'Jarius Sneed moves on, we're set. we're back in a good spot. So I think corner is a sneaky, interesting position for the Chiefs going into this next draft. If they are preparing for life without L'Jarius Sneed, this is a draft that could provide starting caliber depth at that position in the late part of the first round. Similarly, the safety spot. We know how much the Chiefs love to play 3. Well, right now they're down to 2. Juan Thornhill left.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got, obviously, Justin Reed is back, and it will be year number 2 for Brian Cook. Who's going to be that third safety? When Brett Veach talked yesterday, he brought up Najee Johnson and talked about how impressed he's been with Najee Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they figured that last year was something like a redshirt year for Johnson, and they're going to plug him in and be the third safety. Or do they look at that position and say, hey, much like Brian Cook last year, we can add somebody in the first 2 days of this draft who can step in and who can play right away?
Now, they did add Mike Edwards.
That's true. They added the veteran Mike Edwards.
But that's not a long-term play.
No, it's not. And a 1-year deal, right? So that's a guy that may not even, frankly, you bring a guy in on a 1-year deal and you find somebody you like better than him in the draft, you move on from that contract.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there are a lot of guys who sign 1-year deals and they don't make it through training camp. So the long-term solution at safety might be something that they find in the draft. The third position is defensive tackle. And we have discussed when we have done some of our deep dives into mock drafts for the Chiefs, we have seen there have been more than one mock draft. There's been more than one mock draft out there that suggests that the Chiefs might have their eyes on Mozzie Smith from the Michigan Wolverines at number 31 overall as a defensive tackle. The Chiefs obviously lost Colin Saunders.
Mm-hmm.
They brought back Kirk Wharton.
Yep.
Obviously, they got Chris Jones.
Brought back Derrick Nnadi. And they've also got in that rotation some options if they want to bring some guys back that they've had around from last year. But could that be a spot where you want somebody to add to a 4 defensive tackle rotation that is set in stone, that can give Chris Jones a chance to kick outside on some pass rush reps, that can give Jones a chance to get off his feet and play a little fewer snaps so he's fresher as the season goes along? I am not as certain about that idea. I feel like that's a player for a rotation piece you can find on day 3 even. I think if the Chiefs target defensive tackle, I don't think it'll be in the first 2 days of the draft. But again, I'm sorry to cut you off, but again, maybe if we're talking ideas, if they're going off script, unless they don't think they're extending Chris Jones, which would be way out of left field, but that's the way I would rationalize that, is if they don't think he's a long-term piece of this team.
I can't imagine they feel that way. That would run contrary to everything they've said in public and the way they handled his last contract extension. That would be utterly stunning to me. But that might be a tell. You're right. If they take a defensive tackle 31 or they move up to get a DT, like that could be a tell that they think, boy, maybe Chris Jones is going to price himself out of what we're willing to pay our top tier talent guys in an era where they're going to have to redo the Mahomes deal to a certain extent. Probably sooner rather than later. Not like tomorrow, but in the next couple of years, you have to redo that Mahomes deal so that he's not the 11th highest paid quarterback in the league.
One player, I want to go back to the defensive back points that you brought up. There's one player on the board. So, first of all, our friends over at the NFL mock draft database, they've got a consensus big board. They just take all these different big board rankings and mock drafts, and they average all the numbers out, a lot of equations and code and whatnot. And they give you, the consensus around the internet of the rankings of draft eligible players. In the top 63, so there's 63 picks between the first 2 rounds this year since the Dolphins lost their first round pick. They have 11 cornerbacks in the top 61. And all of these dudes are guys I have heard of, whether listening to podcasts or reading draft analysis or reading team thoughts or whatever. I think all 11 could be in the mix or starting right away for any team that drafts them. All 11 of those guys. We have Julius Brents in that group. You have the guys at the very top, Christian Gonzalez, Devin Weatherspoon. They're both in that group. One guy who's fascinating to me, specifically for the L'Jarius Sneed point, because we know Sneed can play on the outside, and he's good, but he is at his best
in the slot. Yeah.
One guy who stands out to me, and it would be very off the grid for the Chiefs because his athletic testing was not good. Like his combine numbers relative to other slot corners, other cornerbacks and defensive backs in general, below average. Clark Phillips from Utah. I watched a lot of Utah football these last couple of years.
I like Clark Phillips.
Clark Phillips is awesome. And if he had run a better 40 and had a better shuttle drill or whatnot, we might be talking about him in the same way we talk about Julius Brents. Like, hey, all of a sudden people are talking about him and he might be a late first round, early second round pick. I think Clark Phillips, in terms of just playing cornerback, might be better than anyone else in this class. I mean, that was a good Utah defense and he was maybe the best player on it. I think that's a piece for the Chiefs. If they're thinking maybe L'Jarius Sneed is not going to be a long-term piece here, if we're going to move off him after one contract, I don't think they're going to trade him. I've seen that whispered about, like, hey, what if they traded him? What if they draft a guy and trade L'Jarius Sneed so they get something back and you don't have to pay him that second contract, which will be pretty sizable, I would assume. I don't think that'll happen because Sneed is too good of a player for that. But if you wanted a guy who is going to slot in immediately, maybe won't be as good of a blitzer, but will possibly be better in coverage, Clark Phillips from Utah is the guy I would want. I would say yes. I would honestly be okay with that as is. I'd be surprised if that was the pick at 63, but I wouldn't hate it by any means. I just think he's that good of a player. The Chiefs are in such an interesting spot where they don't, as much as we think that they need to fill these, and they do. I mean, there's no, well, we think they need to fill those. No, they obviously need to fill those positions, but they can just take really good football players right now. And if they've got an opening or someone slides or they only have to trade up a little bit or they can trade back a little bit or whatever, they can just say, you know what, this guy's just an awesome football player. We're pretty solid and stable everywhere. We can just add him and figure it out later.
Yeah.
Which is a pretty nice spot to be in.
Adding talent is always a plus, no matter if you're middle of the pack trying to get to the playoffs or if you're the Super Bowl champions trying to stay on top. You can do a lot worse than being in a position to grab the best player available and say, we're going to take maybe with something that we've already perceived as a strength, but we're going to make it even better. And they have the ability to do that in this draft. They have given themselves, as we've discussed, they've given themselves that level of flexibility.
They have. It's a great spot to be in. So I think defensive tackle would be, I think that one is just too unrealistic to bring up here for all the reasons that you and we already mentioned. And I just have a hard time saying, yeah, you're going to move off of Chris Jones. I mean, he's just too talented. He's too valuable. He means too much to this team. He's the quarterback of the defense, if you will.
The Chiefs have prioritized keeping elite talent, like top of the top type talent. And what is Chris Jones if he's not that?
Yeah. It's the phrase that I've come back to this for years. We had Seth Keiser from The Athletic and Chief in the North on the show years ago. Hell, it might have been when they signed the first Chris Jones extension in 18. Was that 2018? Whenever that was, when they signed that extension. I remember having Seth on the show, and he used the phrase, you can let good talent walk, but you have to keep great talent. Is Chris Jones a good player or is he a great player? He's a great player. He's maybe, with Aaron Donald getting older and being injured for a lot of last season, he might be the best interior defensive lineman in the NFL. You keep that guy around. So I would find it very hard to believe they would spend that much draft capital on essentially a replacement for a guy that they already have. How bold do you think they'll get trading up or trading back? Realistically, or like if the perfect player is there?
I would say it would be more likely that they would trade back than they would trade up.
Trade back. Really?
Like
interesting.
I think that would be a more likely scenario for the Chiefs. The reason I think they'd be more likely to trade back is, again, because they can, with the different needs that they have, they can let the board come to them a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And if they decide, hey, we're going to move back 2 or 3 spots, we'll make our pick, tomorrow. We'll make our pick day 2, high day 2, get an extra third, get an extra fourth, maybe get a second next year, something like that. You get some additional draft capital. That might be worth it for the Chiefs to be able to wait a little bit. I don't know that they're going to be hyper aggressive to go up and get a guy. Like I think the likeliest scenario is they stay at 31. Like if I had to weigh it, I'd probably say I'm at about And let's go like 60%. I think they're going to stay at 31. Maybe even, let's say 70%. I think they're going to stay at 31. And then, like, if they don't, then it's 50-50, 16-14, essentially.
Okay.
A slight lean towards trading back than trading up.
Okay, fair enough. I think, again, I think it all just depends on who is there. I don't expect, the scenario I ran through earlier. I don't think the Chiefs are going to trade up into the mid-teens to go get a guy. Jackson Smith and Jigba on this team might have 140 catches in a season and 19 touchdowns, but I don't think they're going to leap that high to get someone. But, like, a name we've brought up before, and I've told you he's my favorite wide receiver in the draft. If you see Jordan Addison at 20 and Seahawks are on the board, we know the Seahawks love to trade back.
Mm-hmm.
He's there at 20 and you're willing to give up a couple extra picks, maybe a future pick, and you want to go get that guy. I would not be opposed to that. I don't think it's likely, but I would not be opposed to being that aggressive if that is truly your guy. Now, we haven't gotten any indication the Chiefs want Addison in particular, but I think a piece like that would make some sense. I would say I think it's more likely they move up in the first than they move back, but I would agree that I think it's probably more likely to just sit at 31 and they're content taking a pretty good player there, regardless of what the position is. We'll take your thoughts on the NFL draft, of course, on the text line, 785-272-9429, or you can leave them in the comment section on YouTube. Our channel's called Sports on 580 WIBW. Let's take a break. Matt Derrick will join us later on this hour, but first, we've got some Change My Mind coming up on 580 Sports Talk. Just getting started on this Friday edition of 580 Sports Talk with Brendan and Dan here on 580 WIBW. I'm Brendan, he's Dan. Time for some Change My Mind. Change My mind, Dan. Improv comedy is more entertaining than stand-up comedy.
Improv is more entertaining than stand-up comedy. Now, I think it can be in the right hands. Improv comedy can be hilarious, but like if there's like a Netflix special and one of them is like an improv show and the other is like a stand-up show, I'd probably still lean toward the stand-up because I like the storytelling aspect of stand-up.
All right. That's fair enough.
I think I enjoy the storytelling aspect a little more.
I've always been a big improv fan. I actually took improv classes when I was in high school. We did like a performance and everything. Everyone knows Whose Line Is It Anyway? Great show. Abby and I have been watching. In fact, the final 2 episodes dropped tonight. This show, it's on Freevee, which is an Amazon product. It's called Jury Duty, and the entire cast is all actors except for the main character. The main character thought he was actually being called for jury duty.
Okay.
He was not. The entire rest of it, the court case, the judge, the lawyers, all actors, except for this one guy. And it's totally improv. And there's one famous person. It's James Marsden. And I didn't know who it was. But then I was informed he's actually no real actor.
No, he's been in like the X-Men movies.
Yes. He was in X-Men. There's an entire bit about how he was in the Sonic movie that came out recently.
Okay.
It's incredibly funny. And the one guy who's not an actor is like the nicest guy in the entire world, which makes the whole thing come together better. It's awesome and it's improv and it's phenomenal. And I'm very excited for that. But no, since we had been watching that show, that had popped into my head. Great show, by the way. It's called Jury Duty.
That kind of sounds like it's up my alley. I might have to check that out. That sounds pretty good.
Very funny.
You got a shout out for Whose Line Is It Anyway on the text line from the 785.
I believe Whose Line, if I'm not mistaken, the new version of it is coming to a close. I think it ends after its current season.
Was not aware there was a new version.
Oh, yeah. Instead, I think it was entirely the same cast. You know, they had the one rotating cast member and then Colin Mockery, Ryan Stiles, and Wayne Brady. But Aisha Tyler was the host, not Drew Carey.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Aisha Tyler's very funny.
She is very funny.
Now, I do remember like the Drew Carey version, like when it was first on TV. It was one of those things that like, we didn't set aside time as a family to watch it, but anytime it was on TV, we would just laugh like hyenas at it.
So funny.
Like it was like at its best, that was some of the funniest television you were ever going to see.
Well, it always works better too when people like have chemistry with each other, because like those guys all were just really funny together. Because if you don't have that, it's like a broadcast booth, right? Like you can be really good at color, really good at play-by-play, but if you don't get along or do it together, it sounds like crap.
Change my mind. The NBA should go back to best of 5 playoff series for the first round.
No, I actually agree with that. I was just having the thought earlier today, and maybe this is me just losing some of my attention span over time and the fact that we as a people don't have a very long attention span, but I thought I don't need 7 games of any of these series. Like I really don't. Maybe Warriors Kings, I could say, yeah, I could use 7 games of this, but like I don't need to see that many possible games of the Timberwolves. Like I don't need to see that. I don't need to see the Atlanta Hawks play tonight. They're only a 6-point underdog at home to the Celtics. I don't need to see the Hawks ever again. Like I don't need to see that.
So upsets rather don't happen in the NBA. Like the NBA and the NHL first rounds are going on right now, and we have seen like all kinds of close games and surprising outcomes, and 6 of the 8 NHL series are even at 1 apiece. But in the NBA, historically, it has only ever happened 3 times that a number 8 seed has beaten a number 1 seed. And one of those times because Derrick Rose's knee blew up. And that Bulls team lost in 2012. I'm sorry to bring up a bad memory there.
Yeah, man, that changed like my entire outlook on life when that happened.
Yeah, but like that's
not
what
for the better.
That's in the best of 7 era. That's what it takes for an upset to happen. So you would bring a little bit more variance into it with those 1-8 and 2-7, and even some of the 3-6 matchups that generally like aren't close. Yeah, like the 1 seed is going to beat the 8 seed. There's a reason over 82 games that the 1 seed won like 55 games and the 8 seed won 39 or 40. Like generally the gap in class shows itself. And so I think that the first round is overly long anyway. It would be nice to trim some of the fat from that, go back to the way it used to be in the NBA, go back to the best of 5.
Yeah, it's just too much of it. Too much of too many teams that are just not worth our time. I wouldn't hate playoff contraction, but I know that's not going to happen.
Yeah, in the NBA, we don't need this many playoff teams. In the NHL, at the very least, like you could be the 8th seed, but you get the hot goalie, and the point differentials between the 1st seed and the 8th seed aren't as vast as the differential between the win totals of the top seeds and the lower seeds in basketball. So, in hockey, 16 teams work. In basketball, do we need to be watching the Hawks at this time of year?
No, you could have ended before we got to this time of year, honestly. We do not need to watch the Atlanta Hawks. Let's get to a break. Matt Derrick will join us next on 580 Sports Talk. Let's go to Kansas City, where we talk to Matt Derrick from ChiefsDigest.com. It's our Chiefs insider here on 580 Sports Talk. You can find Matt on Twitter at Matt Derrick, and of course, all of his great coverage of the Kansas City Chiefs over at ChiefsDigest.com. Matt, have you been enjoying the calm before the storm less than a week before the beginning of the NFL draft?
Yeah, that's exactly what it feels like this year. Everybody's been pretty excited here in Kansas City with the draft coming up and everything going on at Union Station. It's all pretty crazy. And you talked to Brett Beach yesterday. I think got everybody in the mood. So yeah, it really does feel like that. Starting Monday, it's really when some of the trade talk kind of starts and rumors start going around. So yeah, it really does feel like the calm before the storm right now.
We were discussing on yesterday's show the Chiefs and the new way over the last 2 years, last year and this year, that they've done the first phase of the offseason program where Patrick Mahomes is allowed to just stay in Texas where he lives during the offseason with some of the receivers. And he's been working out with some of the draft prospects. Zay Flowers this week from Boston College, Quentin Johnston from TCU. Those are the ones, at least, that we know about. And it's totally within the NFL rules. It's not like they're, exploiting a loophole or anything, but is that maybe the biggest advantage the Chiefs have in over any other team in the league in terms of scouting, that they are able to just leave their all-world quarterback in Texas and have him work out with dudes?
It's certainly the willingness that they have to do it. I mean, it's not something for every team because some teams get to start early if they have a new coaching staff or anything. So if your team is terrible, it's not an option for you. You kind of need all the time that you can get. And Andy Reid has a point. I mean, he told us earlier this week that the main reason he decided to start doing it was that they had all these deep runs in the playoffs, and he thought guys just needed a few more weeks of rest. And he liked the way that it worked during the pandemic as far as doing things virtually. And I think for the quarterback and for the pass catchers, it's been ideal because this has been now 2 seasons in a row where there's been some turnover and there's new faces. And let's face it, I mean, in Kansas City, if you're in the facility during phase 1, you can't do on the field activity in front of the coaches. The only things you're able to do are some drills and stretching and calisthenics. You can't be out running routes and throwing footballs to each other. So at this time, the only way those guys could do it in Kansas City is if they go out to a high school field. Well, now, this year they moved over, I guess, to TCU, so they're working in a college facility. They're in Dallas, so guys are able to fly in. Mahomes rented a house for everybody this year. So, I mean, it's becoming a really, sharp operation. And then when you add in the ability to bring in, the rookies and guys that are going to get drafted this year to stop by and throw some passes with Mahomes, I think it's a huge advantage.
I imagine there's a lot of video games played in that house, huh?
That's, I asked Mahomes about what they do because he Mahomes, when he was doing his Zoom with us on Monday, he had a pool table in the background behind him. So I figured there was a little bit of pool being shot. But yeah, I'm assuming that there's a few, PS5s in there. That there's a few video games being played in the rental house.
Do you think that, and again, I don't know exactly how many guys he and the rest of the group down there have worked out with. Again, we know Quentin Johnston, we know Zay Flowers, among others. Do you feel like that is a sign that the Chiefs have those guys maybe high on their draft board? Is it just a matter of, hey, they're here, let's work out with them? Or on the flip side, and Dan mentioned this yesterday, is that maybe the best way to know we shouldn't draft this dude? Like if Patrick Mahomes is throwing passes to Quentin Johnston and he can't catch anything, is that maybe the number one side? Take this guy off our board.
I mean, that's going to be a huge, ability right there. For your quarterback to be able to give you a scouting report to say, yeah, I can throw to this guy, or no, this guy didn't know what he was doing, or no, this guy's slower than he looks, or faster than he looks. Yeah, that's a huge advantage. And just even those couple of Mahomes can get those kind of impressions. I mean, for last year he had that kind of reputation with Justin Watson and being able to say immediately, wait a minute, this guy's a lot faster than I thought he was, than what I was told. So yeah, I mean that's a unique scouting report that they can get, and and Adam Schefter kind of maybe let the cat out of the bag a little bit when I think he said with Zay Flowers, that the Chiefs requested that he go down there. Well, I'm sure Brett Veach would say that he used a little bit different language with the agent, but that's the thing. I mean, I would imagine that if you're a client of Chris Cabot, like, Patrick Mahomes is, it's probably an easier way to get an invitation to go work out with Mahomes. But I would imagine that any receiver that's in the draft that wants to go work out with Patrick's going to throw to him. I mean, if you can get his number, he's going to hook up with you.
Our guest is Matt Derrick. He is our Chiefs insider from ChiefsDigest.com, and he joins us every Friday at this time here on 580 Sports Talk to discuss all things Chiefs. You can find Matt on Twitter at Matt Derrick. Matt, we were having this discussion earlier this hour. We are operating under the assumption that the Chiefs have very clear targets in terms of what positions they would like to take in this draft. Pass catcher, edge rusher, offensive tackle. I think most draft experts have sort of narrowed in on those being the primary positions of need for the Chiefs. Outside of those positions, though, if the Chiefs were to go outside of those consensus needs and pick a player in a different position, go look at a different need in the first 3 rounds, call it, of the draft, What do you think that might be? What other position do you think the Chiefs could potentially target in the earlier portions of the draft that maybe we're not talking about as much?
Yeah, that's a great question. Because even when the Chiefs have brought in some of the guys for their top 30 visits, and you look at some of the players that they've been targeting in some of the interviews, even you do get some glimpses. I mean, there's been some linebackers that they've looked at, cornerbacks, safeties, and corner is probably a really sneaky one, because you'd say with all the defensive backs that the Chiefs took last year, that wouldn't be necessarily a positions group they target. But even a lot of people have been talking, and Brett Veach talked about it yesterday. Cornerback's a deep group in this draft. So, and maybe that's later on. Maybe that's something that they'll be looking at in the 5th or 6th round and say, wait a minute, there's a really deep group of cornerbacks here. Maybe we should target that. In the first 3 rounds, I mean, if it is not those 3 positions that you rattled off, if there's a sleeper position, I think it's tight end. Because one, I think that this is a pretty deep tight end draft. There's probably 6 or 7 tight ends at the top of this draft that I think could be really quality players. And I think the Chiefs, they've got to acknowledge at some point that at 33, Travis Kelce's going to have to start transitioning to a different phase in his career, and that he's not going to be able to play forever. And I think the Chiefs have kind of lived a little dangerously, with just banking on the fact that Kelce's always healthy and going to be there. Maybe the end of the season, when he was a little bit banged up, gave them the reason to think, okay, well, maybe we need to have the heir apparent in here. And, can you say that? Can you say that there is a true tight end, a Travis Kelce replacement on this roster right now? Some tight ends you like, but I'm not sure it's there. So that to me is a sleeper. I mean, I could even see the Chiefs going tight end in the first round if the right kind of player fell to 31. But I even think 2nd and 3rd rounds would be a lot more likely if the right player is there, because that's a position that's important on this team, and I think there's some depth there.
If the Chiefs are not on the clock at number 31 come next Thursday night, do you think it is more likely that is because they moved up or because they moved back?
I think it's slightly. I'm going to give the odds that they moved up. Even though I think that the trading out of the first round is absolutely on the board. I mean, and Brett kind of addressed that on Thursday as well, that, joking about making a first round pick was probably more important over the last 18 months than it is right now. That, once you get to Thursday night rather, that, he's going to be comfortable moving out if they need to. But I think it'll be a lot like last year. I mean, the Chiefs didn't necessarily say that Trent McDuffie was the guy that they were going to go get, but it fit into that category of a position of need and a player that they liked, that, they had a top 15 grade on. And once somebody's available like that at 21, they'll get him. I think the same rule will apply here. So if there's a player that the Chiefs like that starts to fall, I think they'll try and go get them. And that seems somewhat possible this year, because I think there's quite a few. There is really a divergence. I mean, I think we've seen more wide open first round this year than we've seen in years past. And I know a lot of people will say that that's because maybe there's just not as many first round grades as there have been in the years before, and the draft pool kind of falls off a little bit. And if that holds true, then maybe the Chiefs won't want to make true up. I mean, it very well may be that they've only got 15 first round grades, and those guys are all gone by 18. But I still think if any one of those guys falls, I think they're willing to go get them. I think it's going to be difficult to trade out of 31, because unless a team really wants to get up in front of the teams at the beginning of the 2nd round, and that's usually for a quarterback, that you're looking to come up and get that 5th year option on a first round pick. If that's not available, I mean, the Chiefs that spot a couple of years ago when they ended up taking Clyde. They wanted to move out of that draft pick, but they just couldn't find a partner. And that could be the same case this year. If there's a quarterback available at the first round, maybe it becomes easier for them. But that's why I think difficulties both ways. But my prediction would be if they moved one way or the other, it would be up.
Just a couple quick more questions for Matt Derrick from ChiefsDigest.com. He joins us every Friday here on the show for our Sports Talk Chiefs Insider. You can also find Matt on Twitter at Matt Derrick. Matt, can you foresee a scenario in which the Chiefs might take a really big leap up? The scenario I threw out a little bit earlier was, what if one of the top 1 or 2 wide receivers, you're looking at Jordan Addison from USC or maybe Jackson Smith and Jigba from Ohio State, they slide for whatever reason, and they're there at 20 or even in the late teens. Could you foresee a scenario in which the Chiefs say, we have to have that player, so let's make a big aggressive jump and get him? or would anything like that maybe be a little too rich for their blood this year?
I think it would probably maybe fit into being too rich for their blood. I mean, not that, if the right player falls and is available. And, and both those guys, maybe they're in that category. I mean, there's certainly, I think, some offensive tackles that I would put to that category for sure. Probably a few other spots. But yeah, I mean, once again, it goes back to value. If you've got a guy that you think is one of the 15 best players and is available at 21, that's tremendous value. And it's somebody that's not likely to go make it through the gauntlet of the 20s to get to at 31. So I don't think it's too big of a price to pay, but I do think it is for a specific play. I mean, if there's just one guy that you say that this is the only guy that you'd trade up to go get, that's where I think you can maybe overpay and to get into some problems. But if it's a pool of players that you've got, and all of a sudden one of those guys is at 21, that's when I think you start seriously thinking about it.
You mentioned the difficulties that can come sometimes with trading back from number 31. How valuable do you think teams view, or what is the value, I guess, that teams view that fifth-year option with? Like, is that something that a lot of teams around the league really think of as, oh, man, that's something we really want to have. That's an asset, really. Or is that maybe one of those things that, frankly, isn't all that important until we get to the fourth year, whether or not you have to pick it up?
Yeah, in the conventional wisdom around the league, it seems that it's not that big of a deal for most positions. Is it a nice thing to have? Sure. And, and the new rules probably make it a little bit more attractive even because it's going to be a little bit easier, I think, to pick those up going forward since the valuations are going to be calculated a bit differently. But the other part of the conventional wisdom has always been it's more valuable for quarterback, especially, since that's a position that you may not start immediately. And getting an extra year of team control is huge. Almost any other position, if you're drafting somebody in the first round, you're almost expecting them to play from the beginning. So, you're already thinking you're going to get 4 years out of that player. Doesn't necessarily become a big deal. And even sometimes, hey, getting a guy cheaper in the second round maybe is more beneficial than taking him in the first, even at the very, very end. But that's why, I think if there had been a quarterback, that had been available at the end of the draft or the end of the first round, like 2020, I think that would have been a whole lot easier for the Chiefs to make a move then than it would be now.
Be honest with us, Matt. Are you at all worried that this might be a very messy weekend with the draft, given, people don't apparently know how to pick up and drop off at the new airport, and the fact that this is the first time that an event like this has happened in Kansas City? Are you at all worried that this might be a little bit of a mess?
The airport, I will tell you, is the only thing that's got me worried. And, Mitchell Schwartz has got me all scared to death about that now. Hey, everybody, if you're going out to the airport, you're within listening right now, just know how to use the airport, know how to use the cell lot. I mean, no, I have not been to the new airport yet, but all I keep hearing about, yes, is that the pickups are a disaster and a nightmare. With people just stopped in traffic and not using the cell phone lot the way they're supposed to. The rest of it, I think Casey's got it down. I mean, I know they've got some great expectations as far as crowds go, but I don't think it's going to be nearly as big as any of the parades from the last 7-8 years. So I think we've got that part figured out, but the airport scares me.
Matt Derrick covers the Kansas City Chiefs better than absolutely anybody out there, and he does it for ChiefsDigest.com. You can also find him on Twitter. His handle is @MattDerrick, and he joins us every single Friday, bottom of the 3 o'clock hour, here on 580 Sports Talk for our Chiefs Insider. Matt, as always, we appreciate the time. We will be on site at the draft Thursday, Friday next week, so we will see you there by Union Station, Matt.
I can't wait. It's going to be a great week next week. Enjoy it.
That is Matt Derrick from ChiefsDigest.com. Phenomenal stuff with all the insight on all things Kansas City Chiefs. I'm excited. I think this year's draft is going to be a lot of fun because I feel like there aren't, we said this the other day with Jake, I guess yesterday. Like, I don't feel like there's a ton of must-have, can't-miss guys, but there's a lot of just really nice players.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Chiefs can pick almost anyone and be content, no matter where they end up picking.
I do too. I think they're going to get a good player. They're going to get somebody, whether they're at 31 or 33 or into the 20s. I think they're going to get a really good player. The superstars, like you said, may not be there, but I think there are a bunch of solid future pros in this draft.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. We'll talk more NFL draft, of course, as it gets closer next week. Right now, we need to get to a break at the top of the hour. We'll talk some unfortunate news for the Royals and Kris Bubic to lead off the 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk. Hey now, 4 o'clock hour on a feel-good Friday edition of 580 Sports Talk. Just getting started. Brendan Dworzynski and Dan Lucero here with you. Thanks so much for being a part of the show today and every single day. We've got a busy 4 o'clock hour coming up, and if you would like to be a part of it, you can do so by hitting us up on the text line. That number is 785-272-9429. Or you can jump into the comment section on YouTube. The name of our channel is Sports on 580 WIBW. That's where you can find all of our live streams, other video content, and all the things we're putting online in video form. It's on YouTube, Sports on 580 WIBW. We'll get to the Royals and Kris Bubic here in just a moment. Also this hour, we've got our weekly championship for What Is Wrong With You, sponsored by Top City Metal Supply. And later this hour, you heard a little bit about this during our top of the hour CBS National News. 5 NFL players have been suspended, either for 6 games or for the entire season.
Indefinitely.
Indefinitely, that's right. At least a season.
Right.
For betting on sports. Now, we already know that if you bet on NFL games and you're an NFL player, you get suspended for at least a year. We are just getting off of Calvin Ridley missing all of last season for doing that exact thing. The other guys, though, I think might be even dumber. The guys who only got 6 games, I think, well, they're equally dumb, but for different reasons. We'll explain why coming up at the bottom of the hour and why I have absolutely negative sympathy for any of these people involved in this situation. We've got our headlines still coming up later on in the show, too. A Royals weekend preview against the Angels and Shohei Ohtani. What's on tap for the weekend and all that and much more coming up over the next 2 hours here on 580 Sports Talk. And again, text lines open, 785-272-9429. Comments are open on YouTube, Sports on 580 WIBW. Pretty bad news for the Kansas City Royals today. Now, not unexpected news when we heard what the injury was for Kris Bubic, a strain of the flexor in the left forearm. I think pretty much everyone knew or had a hunch what was happening and what was going to be the eventual outcome for Kris Bubic. Then when we found out he needed a second opinion because the initial tests were not good, I think that all but confirmed what we all worried about for Kris Bubic. And now it is officially official. Kris Bubic out for the rest of the year. He needs Tommy John surgery, full reconstruction of the ulnar collateral ligament in his left arm. So he will be out for at least a year, certainly the end of this season. Recovery time, usually around a year, but you've got to recover and rehab. If he is back at some point next year, at any point, really, I think that's probably a win for the Kansas City Chiefs and for Kris Bubic.
For the Royals.
I said Chiefs. For the Kansas City Royals, thank you, as well as for Kris Bubic. Before we get to what this means going forward, this sucks. Like, it, even if he hadn't been pitching well to start the year, like, this is a dude in his mid-20s who, you know, I think given where his career has gone through the first few years he's been in the majors, probably his future in a little bit of flux. Needed a good year to kind of establish, yes, I belong in some role.
It's a really important year for him.
Whether it's starter, long relief, back end, whatever my pitching role is, needed to have a good year. And that's gone now. And he had 2 good starts to open the year. And then a third one where he struggled, but he was hurt. He damaged his forearm, his elbow. Everything was all messed up. Understandably, he didn't pitch all that well against a good Atlanta team. And your heart goes out to the guy because you're going to lose, in all likelihood, more than a year of your finite career to an injury that you could not have prevented.
But so many bullets in the gun, so to speak, when it comes to the pitching arm. It is, as we are so often reminded, a fragile instrument performing an unnatural motion and being asked to perform that unnatural motion at a very high level of stress over and over and over again. And it is never a surprise when somebody's arm gives out like this. And Tommy John surgery, no longer the death knell. I think we're quite a ways out from that. That used to be like, if a guy needed Tommy John surgery, you were lucky to ever see them again. Now there are guys out there off of 2 Tommy John surgeries who put careers together. And it's something that now is more commonly the part of any pitcher's medical history, because how do you hurt that part of your elbow? Spinning the baseball.
Mm-hmm.
And spin is so important, and it is taught, and it is emphasized, and it is encouraged, and the pursuit of that spin gets guys hurt. If you want proof of that, look at Matt Quatrero's former organization, the Tampa Bay Rays, where just about all of their guys have been through Tommy John surgery. They just got Tyler Glasnow back from that. They just lost Jeffrey Springs, who was the breakout success of their season last year and looked well on his way to having a good season this year. Just lost him to he needs Tommy John surgery as well. So, yeah, from a human perspective, you ache for Kris Bubic. From a Royals perspective, it is very strange. I don't know that I would have believed it even in mid-March if you had told me, hey, Kris Bubic is going to be lost for the year in April, and that will be a bummer on a success of the baseball club level because of how promising his first two starts this season were and how much he stood as proof of concept for a new way of thinking and a new way to try and generate some success for this class of pitching prospects that has struggled so mightily to get traction in their professional careers, a class of pitchers for whom so much was from whom so much was expected, so much was hoped for when they were all drafted together. Like, this was supposed to be the foundation for the Royals returning to contention. And a big part of the reason why they haven't done that or come remotely close to doing that is the class of 2018 on the mound hasn't come close to delivering on that level of promise.
And for Bubic, I mentioned it a moment ago, but this is a big year for him to know what his future is going to look like. And by the same token, for the Royals, what do you have in this guy? Can we take the whatever potential is still around and work that, mold that into a usable player? I mean, he's in year one of his ARB years. He's going to be around, assuming the Royals keep tendering him, for the next several years. What do we have in this guy? So you lose another year of development, as if the last several weren't already lost. He loses a year of his career at least. It's just a bad situation all around. So now the Royals are in a spot where they finally have to fill that spot in the rotation. If you remember when he got hurt back on the 15th, he was put on the IL on the 16th. We were told they're not going to worry about filling that spot in the rotation. They had an off day. It was going to be an extra couple of days before they had to worry about that spot. We don't have to make an immediate decision. We do know that tonight it will be Taylor Clark as an opener for the Royals, and then it'll be Ryan Yarbrough piggybacking off of him.
And that's a role that Yarbrough's familiar with, a role that he performed, and really those were the best years of his career, were as an opener or as a bulk reliever coming in after the opener for the Rays. Now, he would later transition to being used in a more traditional starting pitcher role, but you look at his baseball reference page and the best years for Ryan Yarbrough come in seasons where he pitched in 38 games but only started 6, or pitched in 28 games but only started half of those. So it's not a role he's unfamiliar with. No. Certainly one he's capable of performing. We'll see how deep Clark can go. Obviously, his last relief outing wasn't really good. We'll see how deep he goes tonight against an Angels team that is, my memory serves, they're pretty right-handed. Obviously, Shohei Ohtani's not right-handed, but Mike Trout's right-handed. They go a lot of right-handed bats in their lineup. They got one switch hitter, and they've got 4 left-handed bats. One of them's a backup catcher, and one of them is literally Brett Phillips. So it's a pretty right-handed lineup that Clark is going to see early, and then Yarbrough's going to have to deal with all those. I don't think they're going to throw the lefties out to try and tune up Clark early and then get turned around by Ryan Yarbrough. So it could be a tough assignment for Yarbrough in that bulk relief, but again, that's something he's accustomed to.
Is this a long-term option? I feel my instinct reaction is no. This is not something you can nor really should do long-term. And I think the should part of that is the Royals have too many guys that need to figure out what they have. Like, they need to figure out if they've got arms. And I know they can't bring everybody up, and I know some guys are hurt, and I get that. But you've got too many just people in the farm system, on the current club, whatever, that you just need to figure out, are these guys Major League Baseball players? Or is it worth us spending more time, more energy, more roster spots on these guys. So I don't think it is feasible over the course of a season to have day 5 in your rotation be the piggyback day, the opener day. I don't think that makes a whole lot of sense for where the Royals are right now.
Yeah, if you're doing that, you may as well just start Yarbrough.
Right.
And this could be a time or two to get Yarbrough stretched out to where you feel like you can start him and get 5-6 innings from him, whereas maybe you don't feel like you can get that from him right now. That is the most likely short-term outcome, I think, is that he pitches behind an opener today, maybe again the next trip in the rotation, and then by that point, he should have the ability to hopefully get you through a lineup twice, give you 5 innings every 5 days. The reason that it's Ryan Yarbrough is because if you have not been paying attention to the exploits of the AAA Omaha Storm Chasers, those guys on the 40-man roster who are down there, those hopefuls, rotation hopefuls, it's not going real well for them. And look, we should preface this with the caveat that it's like slam ball in AAA right now, all across the board.
Mm-hmm.
That AAA baseball has been an extreme offensive and hitter-friendly environment, even more so early this season than it typically has been. That being said, even in a league where the league ERA is in the high 4s, it does not look good that Max Castillo is carrying a 7.24 earned run average through his first 3 starts with 6 walks and 5 strikeouts in 13 2/3 innings. It does not appear all that promising that Jonathan Heasley through 4 AAA starts has an 8.84 earned run average, though he does have 18 strikeouts to just 6 walks in 19 1/3. So, 19 1/3 innings pitched. So he's got that going for him. And Jackson Kowar,
oh man,
we ain't got to talk about Jackson Kowar no more, guys. We don't have to talk about him anymore. I officially not considering him somebody who is a major league caliber pitcher at any point.
Yeah,
something would have to dramatically change for Jackson Kowar to be, I think, a part of the Royals' future. I would be very surprised he doesn't make it through this year without getting DFA'd.
I mean, a dramatic change would go from being one of the worst pitchers in the whole system to just being regular bad. Like that sucks. Again, from the human perspective, that sucks. And I feel bad for him. You work your entire life, you play high level, preps ball, you go to a major university in a conference that cares about baseball and you're good at it. You're a first round draft pick, and then you're just not a good pro. It doesn't work out. It's not happening. And it sucks. And mentally that's got to really drain on a guy. But if you're talking about, we got to build a baseball team, you can't have that guy on it. You just can't. That's a piece, I'm talking about. You want to figure out, are these guys major league players? Is it worth keeping them around? Is it worth trying? I think we know the answer on at least one of those guys at this point.
Yeah, and it stinks, but that's just the reality of the situation. And those are the 3 guys that are on the 40-man roster who have or are the closest to the major leagues. If any one of them was off to a promising start down there at AAA. And again, I want to note, it's not the end of the world for Heasley and Castillo that they've got high ERAs, because a lot of guys in that league have high ERAs. The ball's jumping out of those AAA ballparks. There's something to be said for, maybe you get into the big leagues and it's actually a little bit less of an offensive environment. I would expect those guys, honestly, if you gave them the same number of innings, they might pitch to a lower ERA in the major leagues right now. That's just what AAA is right now. Just the way things are going.
Has been for years.
Yeah. And more extreme this year, it certainly feels like. But like, your other options aren't all that enticing. Mike Myers is down there. He's been a major league starting pitcher. He's pitched in the bigs, not to any distinction. He's not a prospect. There's a reason he was available for the Royals, a free talent pickup. I think it was the Angels that DFA'd him.
Probably good for a few laughs, though.
Oh, yeah. Or he might stab you in your house.
Yeah, that's also possible.
No, it's not actually. It's spelled Mayers, Mayers.
Okay.
So, yeah, it doesn't even pass like the visual test. Not like the former big league reliever, the Mike Myers. Remember him? He's the side-arming lefty, pitched for Arizona, Colorado, a few other teams. He's come out of the bullpen to the Halloween theme.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I remember that.
He was actually Mike Myers.
I couldn't have pulled that name, but that makes a lot of sense.
Like, he is theoretically an option. Daniel Lynch is still on the injured list. Last report we saw on him from Ann Rogers of MLB.com suggests that it'll be another month before Lynch is back on the mound. We have a great suggestion from the 785 on our text line. Just let Nate Eaton pitch now.
Probably be worth more wins above replacement that way.
Nate, he's got 94 and a slider. Like, he's got a fastball that's moving a little bit.
So you look at those options and it feels like, because if he wasn't hurt, it would be Lynch, right? Well, I mean, assuming he didn't put up Kowar type numbers, but I think he's the obvious option. But I mean, that's bleak. That is extremely bleak. And it makes you feel like, as much as the logic would tell you, don't do the opener strategy, you almost have to. You can't just do a bullpen day every 5 days. You can't do that.
No.
So you need to go in with some kind of plan. That just is a crappy one. It sucks. And it's everything is about that for the Royals now, right? Like, well, you would love to have it be another way, but Dayton Moore decided to, put together an awesome church rec league team instead of a major league team for 5 years. And now you end up with this.
It's not good. You'd really like to have had some better options by now, lurking at the AAA level. And like I said, maybe there's more to eat that meets the eye with what Heasley's done in his first 4 starts. And he's just been really unlucky to have an 8.84 ERA. And maybe he gets a call. Maybe Max Castillo gets a call. But I think the most likely scenario is they're going to go with the opener a couple of times and then elevate Yarbrough. Because, I mean, that's why you brought him in, right? You brought him in to kind of be a swing man, to be an emergency starter, and to fill in if it's not working out for some of those, guys in their mid-20s down at AAA, or if they're working on something that they need more time to work on. This is your April contingency plan, is more innings for Ryan Yarbrough. And I know that doesn't excite anybody, and I get that it doesn't excite anybody, and frankly, it shouldn't excite anybody. But it's the most logical path forward, it feels like, for the Royals at this point.
2 thoughts. One of them is really bad. The first one is, the unfortunate thing about also just being terrible is that it's not like you could say, well, we're trying to win, and we're going to fight for a wild card spot, and we could go add someone. We can move a piece to go add a pitcher, even a true 5th starter, like a guy who's not going to do anything more than just eat up 5 innings. We can go add a guy like that later in the summer or right now or whatever. You're not doing that when you're this bad. So you're just stuck with the options you have currently on the 26 or in the farm system. There's also a very horrible thing, a very horrible option that I don't want to put into the universe. They need a starting pitcher. One who has a championship pedigree.
Don't you do it. Don't do it.
There would be no pressure to perform at all. He's a big, country farm guy. There's a lot of that in the general area.
Oh,
Madison Bumgarner is out there.
Don't do this to these people.
I don't like it. I'm not happy to have to say that. But what other free agent pitchers are out there? You wouldn't have to pay him anything, right? The Diamondbacks are going to pay everything.
Yeah, as long as he doesn't get claimed off of waivers, which nobody should claim him off of waivers and pick up his contract. Nobody's going to do that. Then, yeah, the Diamondbacks are going to owe him all $34 million still left on his contract. And, hey, big outfield.
Yeah.
Good pitcher's park.
I mean, someone has to pitch. You can't go with a 4-man rotation. Someone has to pitch. Maybe it's him.
God, imagine doing that. Imagine doing that to your fans. Honestly,
yeah, it'd be insulting.
It's another miserable year of Royals baseball. But hey, guess what? Remember the guy that stole a world title from you single-handedly in 2014? We've got his corpse. And we're going to roll it out to the mound every 5 days.
Maybe that's like punishment. Maybe it's some sort of cosmic justice. You took this from us, and now we're going to embarrass you. We have nowhere further low we can go.
Okay, maybe I'm coming around.
Yeah, we're going to make you miserable. That's what you're going to be stuck doing. Did you know he once dated someone named Madison Bumgarner?
Yes, I've heard that story. I've also heard the story that he competes in rodeos in the offseason under a fake name.
Yeah.
Or the time that he crashed his mountain bike.
Never been the same. He's never been the same since it happened. Now, maybe this would have happened anyway. I wouldn't be able to tell you back in 2014, oh, yeah, this dude's going to age like milk.
Did you see the detail it was in the Arizona newspaper?
Mm-hmm.
Their website is azcentral.com. I forget what the newspaper is called. The Republic, maybe?
You might be right about that.
But anyway, the report was that his stuff, Bumgarner's stuff, is so non-competitive at this point that hitters talk about adjusting to him the way they talk about adjusting when a position player is on the mound.
Yikes.
That's
very funny, though.
Oh, it's hysterical. Could be happening to a nicer guy.
Yeah, very easy guy to root against, for sure. The
Royals aren't going to do that.
I'm sure they're not. That would be very against what their new philosophy seems to be. I'm just saying he'd essentially be free. You would just have to put up with his attitude. Someone has to pitch. You have to give the ball to someone every 5 days. I'm not saying I want it. I'm just saying it could possibly happen. Although probably not. We've got to get to a break here on 580 Sports Talk. We'll find our weekly winner and what is wrong with you after this on 580 WIBW. It's time to find a weekly winner in What Is Wrong With You here on 580 Sports Talk. And as always, our What Is Wrong With You is brought to you by Top City Metal Supply, who cuts the metal you need to your specifications, saving time, money, and material. Never settle when it comes to metal. Top City Metal Supply is located on South Topeka Boulevard, halfway between Frito-Lay and Forbes Field. Our winner for the week so far is the Marathon Cheater, a story from yesterday, a Scottish woman who was competing in an ultra marathon, 50 miles, and she ran 47 and a half of them, which for you and I, a great accomplishment of physical strength and gifts. If you have to run 50 to be, finish in the standings though, not quite enough, because she hopped in a car for 2.5 miles midway through the race. She was tired. She was a little sore. You figured, oh, look, a friend who I definitely just ran into coincidentally. Sure. You hop on in.
And then accepted the third place trophy anyway.
Despite uploading her race data that clearly showed a major change in the time for those 2.5 miles, and also the fact that she took 0 steps.
Yes, going from running like a 12-minute mile in mile 38 to shattering the world record time for a mile in miles 39 and 40.
So that is our current winner for the week. That's going to be a tough one to beat. First story for today is going to take us down to Jensen Beach, Florida, where we meet Matthew Faulkner. This guy was really drunk.
Okay.
I'm just going to give you that.
It says drunk Florida man in the headline, and you got to be pretty drunk for the headline to include drunk when the next 2 words are Florida man, because a lot of that is implied, to be completely honest.
Yes, he was extremely drunk. So this actually happened a while back. It has just surfaced now, but it happened a while back. This is actually a really old story, so it's not going to win today. But nonetheless, it's very funny, so we're going to keep it. All right, so back in October, Faulkner, 30 years old, apparently decided to make a run for some fourth meal. So he got really drunk, and then he wanted to go get Taco Bell.
Whom among us?
Yeah, that has happened to many people many times. And he actually made it to the Taco Bell in his Chevy pickup truck. He placed his order, and then he got his taco at the pickup window. Unfortunately, as you may have remembered, he was very drunk. And after taking his taco from the person at the drive-thru, he passed out. The manager had to call police because Faulkner was out cold at the pickup window.
Oh, man.
And was thus holding up the line behind him. A deputy eventually awoke Faulkner and then asked for his ID. Faulkner said no, and then he decided better of himself, and he handed the cop a taco. That is not a valid form of ID. Another deputy clarified they were asking for an identification card, not a taco. Faulkner chuckled and then began eating. Then, while all this is happening, deputies realized that Faulkner had fallen asleep with his foot on the accelerator while his truck was in park, and the car caught on fire. His truck engine lit on fire. Fire extinguishers had to be deployed to put it out. Faulkner's blood alcohol content was somewhere between 0.227 and 0.225. According to a breathalyzer test, in case you didn't know, that is 3 times the legal limit. Nearly 3 times the legal limit. He was hauled off to face DUI charges.
He just gives him a taco. And when the deputy says, "That's not what we're looking for," his response was, "Oh, that's wild." Man, I got a taco. Sweet. And then you start eating.
That's awesome. I wonder what kind it was. Like Doritos Locos or just a regular soft shell? I don't know.
Is the only thing he ordered?
Yeah, just one single taco.
That's serial killer behavior.
See, it couldn't have been. You can't get that drunk and then eat one taco.
No. He probably had a Doritos Locos taco, the
Crunchwrap Supreme,
quesadilla,
definitely got cinnamon twist,
5-layer burrito, 5-layer beef.
Yeah. Nachos Bel Grande.
Man, now I want Taco Bell.
Yeah, I do too.
Talking myself into it. He lit his engine on fire.
He's passed out.
Oh gosh.
Revving it.
That's tough.
2.2 or 0.227.
Wow.
That's really drunk. Nearly 3 times the legal limit, which is 0.08 if you're keeping a score at home.
That is a blood alcohol content higher than half of the Royals starting lineup batting average.
That is unnecessarily mean.
Why are you booing me? I'm right.
Wow. I need a minute to recover from that. What story do you have? Looks like we're also going to Florida for this one.
Yeah, we got double Florida day. We go to Cape Coral. No, we don't. We go to Cape Coral.
We've definitely called it Cape Coral before. It was probably either you or me, actually, long ago.
Cape Coral. I'm reading it. It's 1R. Cape Coral, Florida. We meet 28-year-old Dylan Alexander Flory. And detectives arrived at his house to arrest him. They knocked on the front door, windows, and back doors to no avail. But according to the Lee County Sheriff's Office, detectives heard someone enter the garage and enter the attic. Investigators contacted Flory's sister, who stated Flory was not home and that she had not seen him in days. After further investigation, the sister said, "Yeah, I saw him get in the attic," while the detectives were knocking at the door. After further investigation, I'm sure that further investigation was, lying is a crime, right?
Mm-hmm.
Law enforcement entered the garage, tried to speak with Flory through an open hatch in the attic. They informed Flory they had an active warrant for his arrest. The report states that an hour and a half passed with no response from Flory, who was still rummaging around in the attic.
Why are you hold on. Why are you rummaging? Don't make sound.
Yeah, you're supposed to be like quiet and hiding up
right.
there. Suddenly, a canine unit responded to the scene. That's such a weird turn of phrase. Suddenly, like out of nowhere, here come
wow, a dog. Yeah. Where'd he come from?
What a surprise. More police arrived at this thing where they were already the police. A canine unit responded to the scene. Flory was spotted in the corner of the attic, and even after his discovery, he refused to comply. Using pepper spray and a taser, Flory still did not cooperate. The story makes it very unclear who was using pepper spray and a taser. I'm just reading it verbatim. Did the police? Did Flory? I'm guessing the police.
I assume it was the dog.
It could have been the dog. Very talented canine officer using pepper spray and a taser. Flory still did not cooperate until the ceiling floor cooperated by collapsing under his weight, and Flory went crashing through the ceiling and falling onto the bedroom floor.
A messy bedroom.
Yeah, he's definitely could stand to like go Marie Kondo on the contents of his bedroom. He's got to get rid of some of that junk. It does not spark joy. He was placed into handcuffs, taken outside to be decontaminated and searched. In his right front pocket, a clear glass tube known to be used for smoking narcotics was found. Flory was taken to Cape Coral Hospital for evaluation, and after clearance, he was transported to Lee County Jail. Unclear what the original warrant was for, but he now faces obstruction charges, a felony probation violation, and possession of drug equipment.
This is not a visual medium, as we know. Is he vomiting in one of these pictures posted by the police department?
I think he is.
I think he's vomiting.
I think he is.
There seems to be some sort of milky white liquid spewing from his mouth.
Yeah, I think that's an action shot of him yakking on himself.
I love the jorts, though. You can, like, we didn't need to know this was Florida. He's wearing very nice, dark hemmed jorts. Like, I would have been able to say, oh, yeah, this is Northern Florida.
Like fitted jorts.
Yeah.
Like,
you got Under Armour jorts. You got the tri-fit jorts.
He got the fitted jorts.
Give me the jorts, but make them fashion.
Skinny jorts.
Wow, I've never seen that before. I wish everyone could see this picture.
We'll put it on the YouTube.
Yeah, I'm going to put this up.
Put it on the YouTube.
This man, he really is puking.
Yeah,
like,
this is
vomit.
He definitely is.
All right, if you're watching on the YouTube feed, we're going to give you a look at this. If you're listening on the Sports Voice of Kansas, just trust us. This gentleman is puking on himself, and specifically puking on a pair of jorts.
Wearing the skinniest jorts.
All right, I got to chop this up so we can post this. I need someone else to be able to see this picture.
Yes.
It's sending me.
Yes, we need our YouTube viewers to see this.
I'll throw in the cracked in attic as well, just with the insulation all over the place, because it is really a great sight.
Yeah, incredible scene all the way around.
All right, so while we get this posted up on the YouTube for all to see, who's your winner for today?
I love both of these stories, but I think the taco story is funnier. The fact that he set his own engine on fire and tried to give the officer a taco as his ID.
Yeah. Hey, no, this is it.
Ate the taco in front of the deputy.
Ask her. I just ate this. All right, so it's up on YouTube right now. Yeah, man, I mean, he's puking all over himself.
Yeah, there's no question.
Those are dark jorts, too.
Wait, no. You see there's a water bottle. I ruined it. There's a water bottle there in the top corner. They're dumping water on him.
Like he's a cat? Why are they dumping water on him?
To decontaminate him, obviously.
I guess.
He was probably, when the dog pepper sprayed him.
Yeah. Oh, man, I was hoping that was vomit. And I just saw the water bottle, though.
Why are those jorts so tight around his thigh?
Yeah, those are really nice jorts. I'd rock those.
They're not, they're like they're like designer jorts. They're not like they're not cutoffs.
Jordache jorts. That's what he's rocking.
Jordache.
Oh, God. All right, does that beat the marathoner?
I don't think so. Because the marathoner was stone cold sober when she made the decision that she was going to hop in a car during a 50-mile marathon, ultra marathon, and then just claim third place and take the trophy home with her
And
like
then
nothing happened.
Lied about it. And she said, "Oh, well, they told me I'd really regret this." No, they did not.
Yeah.
They absolutely did not.
No, nobody says that. They were like, another quitter. Doesn't have the chest to run all 50 miles.
Yeah, get your Gatorade over there and get out of my face. Yeah, I'm with you. That is our winner for the week in What Is Wrong With You. Man, what a last couple of days for What Is Wrong With You. Brought to you by our friends at Top City Metal Supply right here in the capital city. Metal cut to order when you need it. That's Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard, halfway between Frito-Lay and Forbes Field. Let's get to a quick timeout here on 580 Sports Talk. On the other side of this break, 4 Detroit Lions and 1 Washington Commander are really dumb. We'll explain next on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan and Dan here with you on 580 Sports Talk, 444 on Friday afternoon. Earlier today, the NFL announced that 5 players, 4 Detroit Lions and 1 Washington Commander, are being suspended for gambling on sports. Now, I am speaking vaguely because the suspensions are different here. You've got 3 players who have been suspended indefinitely for at least the duration of the 2023 season because they actually bet on NFL games. Those players are wide receiver Quintez Cephas, safety CJ Moore, as well as Commanders defensive end Shaka Toney. The first 2 played for the Lions. Cephas and Moore have been cut by the Lions. They have been released by the team.
Which, if you heard that news and without knowing anything about the 2 players involved, if that immediately made you think those must not be very important players. Yes, correct.
I kind of like Quintez Cephas, but also he's probably not that important. And if he was more important, he probably would not have been cut. To be frank, to that point. So those guys are all suspended for at least a year. They can apply for reinstatement after 1 year. And I guess that really only applies to Toney because the other guys got cut, at least for now. 2 other players for the Lions both received 6-game suspensions. That includes Jamison Williams, the first-round pick of the Lions last year, who they traded up to get, as well as wide receiver Stanley Berryhill, who, if you don't know who that is, you're not alone. They have been banned 6 games each because they bet on games, not on the NFL, but they bet on games while inside the Lions team facility in Allen Park, Michigan. The NFL, and I don't know if everyone knew this. In fact, I wasn't clear on this until today. The NFL does not have a rule against betting on other sports. So if you're an NFL player and you say, hey, I want to put $100 down on Stanford plus 14.5 against UCLA, you can do that. There's no rule against that. But there is a rule against doing it at the team facility. You can't be gambling in the building. That is a no-go. That's why those guys have been banned 6 games.
It's not just the building either. They've got rules against doing it on the team plane, in the team hotel, on the road. Anything that is at the time essentially being used by the team is a place where you cannot gamble.
And frankly, I don't really see a problem with that. Like, I think there's a lot of companies that probably say, hey, don't gamble on company time. I don't really think that's all that out there, to be completely honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, some probably are cool with it. Maybe it's like, hey, do it on your own time in the break room, whatever. I don't know. I'm not really surprised at a league that says, hey, we want to make sure everyone knows we are on the up and up. The integrity of the game is on the up and up. Don't do it in our buildings, in our facilities, when you're on the plane, whatever. I don't personally have a problem with that. And as you alluded to earlier when we teased this at the top of the hour, they are told this. Every year, every NFL player is told, and apparently this is true, they do have a sign in the building. Do not gamble here, and do not gamble on NFL games. The guys who got a year-long suspension, they're dumb as hell, because we just saw a player better than any of them get suspended for a full year in Calvin Ridley because he put like a 4-game parlay together at the Hard Rock Casino in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
4 years ago, 2019, remember Josh Shaw, former Chief?
Mm-hmm.
He was suspended for an entire year after the Chiefs had cut him because he gambled on an NFL game. Alex Karras and Paul Hornung got suspended decades ago for doing the same thing for an entire year.
Hall of Famers.
Yes.
And at the time, among the most famous players in the league.
Easily. And they got suspended for a year. You cannot and have never been able to do this.
That would be the rough equivalent today of the league suspending like Derrick Henry and Aaron Donald.
Yes. Yeah, pretty much. That's the kind of players that can get wrapped up in this. Like, it's so dumb that these guys are still doing it. Also, a point about the Lions. This is included in the ESPN write-up about this. Separate from these punishments, several Lions staff members in various departments were dismissed last month for violating the gambling policy. It's like Monte Carlo in Allen Park. What is this? Now, there is a rule. No one who is a non-player, so coaches, support staff, front office people, trainers, none of them are allowed to gamble on anything. That is you cannot gamble on sports, but a player can.
Mm-hmm.
Just don't bet on the NFL. Don't bet on the people you know, and then don't bet in team buildings. That shouldn't be hard to follow.
Before I say what I want to say here, I feel like there is some full disclosure necessary. I am/have been a paid endorser of FanDuel. You may be very aware of that if you've listened to the program at any given time in the last 6 months or so. When we do those reads, I'm getting a kickback from the FanDuel people. It's not substantial, but it's something. So I should say that, and I should lay my cards on the table. Maybe not a great metaphor when we're talking about sports gambling, but I should be upfront with you folks before I say what I need to say here, because there has been a lot of reaction to this along the lines of it is hypocritical. People believe it is hypocritical for the NFL to have official gambling partners like FanDuel or other places. Like there's lots of advertising for DraftKings, and there are other gambling sites or apps or casinos that advertise with the NFL, and the NFL is happy to take their money, but would punish players for gambling. People look at that on its face and believe that to be hypocritical. I do not. And the reason I do not, the reason that I think it is anything but, and that the league actually needs to be much firmer when dealing with players who bet on NFL games, it's the same reason we got laws against insider trading. because all it takes is for one guy in the league to have heard, hey, my buddy plays for Cincinnati, and he told me that Joe Burrow spent all of Saturday night throwing up in his hotel room, and he might not even play today, and nobody knows this. Not even Jay Glazer or Adam Schefter's reporting this yet. So before it gets out, I'm going to place a significant wager on whoever the Bengals are playing to cover. And I'm going to, and if it's a significant enough wager, if you know anything about gambling, big wagers move lines. Big wagers impact how much money is placed on games, how much money changes hands, how the point spread moves, how the total moves, all of those things.
Yep.
All it takes is one player to have that insider information, and they can have a significant impact on that particular industry. It is in effect the same thing as insider trading. And we have laws against that, and people get thrown in jail for that. And the same reason you have laws against insider trading, that's why you can't have guys betting on games in the league that they play in under any circumstance. I don't think these punishments are strong enough. If you bet on the NFL as an NFL player, you should be banned for life. No exceptions.
That's what we were talking about a couple of weeks ago with the new NBA CBA, right? That, hey, now players can have endorsement deals with the sports books.
Right.
No, but like Kevin Durant, and we already are kind of in an area where that's a little too murky because Kevin Durant's company, the Boardroom, they actually have a partnership with a sports book.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I just saw it today, the Boardroom same game parlay or whatever at FanDuel. Like, Kevin Durant's company really be involved in that, even if it's not him making those deals? Like, that's way too close to the situation. And I know, well, this suspension brought to you by DraftKings, brought to you by FanDuel, MGM. Like, that's not the same thing. Like, that's such a lazy opinion, in my opinion, to say, oh, well, you're taking money from these sports books. Yeah, because they're advertising it to us, not NFL players, normal people on the outside who don't have those kind of inside connections, who can't on their own influence a game. Because guess what? Players can.
Yes.
Players know other players, and the players are, guess what? The ones who play in the football games. There's way too much interconnectivity there.
It's not so much about throwing games or point shaving in games.
Mm-hmm.
That is not, I don't believe that's the threat that it once was on the professional level back when guys were, had to work at the box factory in the off season, or it's not the threat that it was at the college level when we've got, you don't have to go that far back to find major point shaving scandals like Arizona State. That was the mid-90s.
Mm-hmm.
Not that long ago.
Boston College in the 80s?
70s.
70s. Okay.
70, yeah. Henry Hill from Goodfellas was great 30 for 30 about that. That's less of the concern than the concern that there's all this money that gets wagered on these games, and these players can move the lines and influence the lines by placing large wagers, and then you're messing with lots of people's money. And that's what, A, the gambling houses don't want any part of that,
nope.
And B, the leagues don't want to be associated with that either. And C, if you, the gambler, are the everyday sports fan who likes to wager $5, $10, $20 on an NFL game, you're being impacted by that too.
Yep.
And that's what can't happen. That's what you can't have.
Two quick thoughts, and Mark brings this up on YouTube. Like, this isn't just NFL history. Like, from Pete Rose to, again, Alex Karras to Calvin Ridley last year, everyone, to the Black Sox, everyone knows if you play in a sport professionally, you cannot gamble. The NFL's, like we said, more lenient about this. You want to bet on the NBA? We don't care.
Yeah,
this isn't
new. Like, this isn't new. This isn't a new policy as of, when gambling became legal in X amount of states.
Right.
There have been an anti-gambling policy in the NFL, like you said, going back to Hornig and Karras. This is not new.
The one other thing that always comes up when there's a gambling suspension is, wow, you got guys beating their wives. They get 6 games, but you're going to ban gamblers. Look, one bad policy does not mean another policy also has to be bad. Like,
Great
the
point.
NFL cannot handle domestic violence, and they never have, and it's a bad situation. But that doesn't make this also a bad situation. They handled this right. I agree 1,000%. You guys got to be smarter. Come on. Everyone knows the rules at this point. We've got 1 hour to go this week on 580 Sports Talk, and we'll start it off with our headlines after this on 580 WIBW. now. Just 1 hour to go this week on 580 Sports Talk, and one more hour today as well. I'm Brendan Dworzynski. That is Dan Lucero. We're here with you until 6 o'clock today. We've got Royals baseball on our airwaves tonight. 8 o'clock pregame. 8:38 first pitch at Angel Stadium in Anaheim, California. You ever been to Angel Stadium?
I have not.
Looks cool. That's one I've always wanted to go to. I've got a friend who's been who said it's really, really nice.
Yeah, it's amazing. They at first it was baseball only, and then they built it up to be a football stadium back when the Los Angeles Rams played there. And then once the Rams decamped for St. Louis, they sort of deconstructed it back into being a baseball stadium. It is a pretty nice looking baseball stadium.
It really is. It's also right next to Disneyland. Like they're right across the highway from each other.
Yeah.
I have been to Disneyland, although not Angel Stadium.
I just wish they still had the big A as the scoreboard and not just the thing in the parking lot.
Yeah, that would be cool. I would like that as well. Any more cool, weird, unique stuff at stadiums? Coming up in this hour, we will get to our 580 Sports Talk headlines momentarily. We'll also take a weekend preview look at Royals versus Angels, and we'll let you know what else we will be watching in the sports world coming up over the next pair of days, and tonight, too, if you want to make it all three. We will also get to any texts you want to send in. 785-272-9429 is the text line number. And, of course, you can jump into the comment section on YouTube as well. Sports on 580 WIBW is the name of our YouTube channel, and that is where you can find all of our live streams. But without further ado, it's time for our 580 Sports Talk headlines for today. And my first one is a bit of a somber one, especially for the Kansas State Wildcats family and fan base. Earlier today, Ernie Barrett, known as Mr. K-State, passed away at the age of 93 at his home in Manhattan. There will be, we'll get to this first, a celebration of life for Mr. K-State at 1 o'clock on Thursday, April 27th. It will be at Bramlage Coliseum. There will also be a reception afterwards at the Shamrock Zone between Bramlage Coliseum and Bill Snyder Family Stadium. Ernie Barrett, again, Mr. Kansas State, has meant so much to that program for so long. His name is in the rafters on a banner at Bramlage Coliseum. 93 years old. That man saw a whole lot in his life. Born in 1929, a Kansan his entire life. He was born in Pratt. He spent his life, or a lot of his life, growing up in Wellington. He was a state champion for Wellington basketball back in the late 40s. He was recruited by everyone. Everyone wanted a piece of Ernie Barrett when he was going to college. Ends up committing to Kansas State. And in 1948, that began what was pretty much a lifetime of service to Kansas State University. Graduated twice from the school, including a bachelor's degree and a master's in 1951 and then 1956, respectively. He spent 75 years of his life dedicated to Kansas State, serving in roles including student-athlete basketball player and one of the best that the school has ever had.
First All-American, I believe, in K-State basketball history.
Yes, he was. That's a great note. Assistant basketball coach, assistant athletic director, university consultant, and director of development. He captained the 1951 K-State team that was the first team to ever play in Ahern Fieldhouse and also led them to the Final Four. And as Dan mentioned, their first consensus All-American. He was on the coaching staff for 2 Final Fours in 59 and 64 and 5 Big 8 titles in the range from 1958 to 1964. He was also one of the gentlemen behind the hiring of Jack Hartman, pretty important hire in K-State history as well. As of 1990, a member of the Kansas State Athletics Hall of Fame, known for his personality, and I did not know this about him until today, but, I'm not a K-State guy. His firm handshake, also apparently the stuff of legends. Ernie Barrett, 93 years old, passed away earlier this morning.
Yeah, Mr. K-State is not an honorific. Mr. anything, when you're talking about somebody as Mr. something, that's not an honorific you hand down lightly.
No.
And very clearly not one that was handed down lightly to Ernie Barrett. I was at, I think it was Alumni Day, they call it, at the K-State basketball game. Trying to remember which game that was. Might have been the Florida game. Might have been the Florida game. They had a bunch of the former players out too, and a lot of them took to the court at halftime. And of course, there were great ovations for some of the recent favorites. I think DJ Johnson was there. Rolando Blackman got a great hand, but the loudest and longest ovation was saved for last, and it was for Ernie Barrett, because no matter what generation of Kansas Stater you are, you know who he is and you knew what he meant to that school and you knew what that place meant to him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why he's such a titanic figure in Kansas State history, because he bled purple and was like, there's when you walk around the athletic facility, you drive around in Manhattan, whether it's Bill Snyder Family Stadium, Toynton Family Stadium, the track, Bramlage Coliseum, it's all got his fingerprints on it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, all of it was either directly made possible by the work of Ernie Barrett or was something that Ernie Barrett's work ultimately led to. And it is no exaggeration to say that he is, if he's not the most influential person in the history of K-State athletics, if you want to give that nod to Bill Snyder, I would totally understand why. But if you do, you better give Ernie Barrett the silver medal. And if you want to argue he's number one, top of the heap, the K-State, the most influential person in the history of Kansas State athletics, I don't think I could argue that.
And I'm not going to tell anyone how to mourn or feel in the wake of someone's passing, but I think calling the event the celebration of life is very apt, because as sad as it is to lose someone who is an icon, who meant so much to so many people and to that university and to that athletic department and all of that, like I said, you live to be 93. You got to see a lot of stuff in your life. You got to live through a lot, experience a lot, and touch a lot of people. And I hope that is what next Thursday is all about, is celebrating the guy that he was and what he did for K-State. Although I will admit, it is a little tough or a little sad for both of our major programs in our near vicinity. Both have lost major athletic greats and contributors and people who just cared about their school more than anyone. Ernie Barrett today, and KU lost John Hadel this past year as well, which is obviously a sad day for both those programs. For K-State, I know mourning today, but there will be a lot to celebrate with Mr. K-State's life coming up next Thursday.
Absolutely. Rest in peace to Mr. K-State. A life well lived. Let's just go ahead and what do you say we get right into what is my favorite part of this time of year and the thing that we get to do, and that is our
playoffs
roundup.
Woo! Yeah!
We're going to talk
playoffs
in the NBA, and we'll talk the NHL
playoffs
as well. It is the playoff roundup on our 580 Sports Talk headlines. We'll start in the NBA, where last night, in a game that featured a lot of people getting hit in the groin, the Philadelphia 76ers took a 3-0 series lead over the Brooklyn Nets. Joel Embiid somehow not kicked out of the game for kicking at Nick Claxton's groin in the first quarter. James Harden was kicked out of the game for contact with somebody's groinal region in the third quarter, but the Sixers were able to survive Harden's ejection and hold off the Nets late to take a 3-0 series lead. Elsewhere in the Western Conference, the Golden State Warriors, without Draymond Green, took Game 3 from the Sacramento Kings and got within 2-1 in that series, while the shorthanded Clippers ultimately could not handle Devin Booker and the Phoenix Suns, as the Suns take a 2-1 series lead in that one. No Kawhi Leonard last night for the Clips.
Y'all didn't want to extend the game? Y'all didn't want to foul Kevin Durant one more time? Maybe he misses both, you get another chance? Or maybe he hits both and covers the spread? You frauds.
Was there perhaps a financial interest in that one?
Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe a little bit.
Tonight in the NBA playoffs,
covering all freaking game, man.
We've got 3 Game 3s, 2 of them out east, where the Celtics look to take a 3-0 series lead in Atlanta against the Hawks, and the Cavs and the Knicks play Game 3. That series is even at 1-1 as the scene shifts to Madison Square Garden. The late game out west tonight, the Denver Nuggets and the Minnesota Timberwolves. Denver up 2-0 in that series.
The funny thing is that's not even out west. That's Central Time. They got an 8:30 local time tip. That is late. Well, I guess it's a Friday.
Yeah, it is. At least it's a Friday. But yeah, the late tip-offs, they are. I mean, we're only a week into this, and your boy is struggling, because it's not like, oh, game's over, now I can go to sleep. No, it's like game over, and either I'm wired or I'm upset.
Yeah.
And it's hard to go to sleep when you're either of those two things. So the mornings have been rough for your boy this week, and hopefully for a long time to come. That would be great for me. In the NHL, speaking of last night's action in the NHL, the defending Stanley Cup champion Colorado Avalanche rallied from 2-0 down after the first period to defeat the Seattle Kraken 3-2, and even that series at 1-1. Also winning to level their series at a game apiece, the Toronto Maple Leafs, who hammered the Tampa Bay Lightning last night in Toronto, and the Vegas Golden Knights, who came from behind early to defeat the Winnipeg Jets. Meanwhile, the Rangers have a 2-0 series lead on their Eastern Conference first-round opponent, the New Jersey Devils, a 2-0 series lead after a 5-1 win for the Rangers in Newark. Tonight, Game 3s all around. The Carolina Hurricanes are the only team playing from 2-0 up in their series as they go to take on the New York Islanders, while the Bruins, Panthers, Stars, Wild, and Oilers, Kings series are all 1-1, with the scenes shifting to Miami, Minneapolis, and Los Angeles, respectively. Big news for the President's Cup trophy winning Bruins, who won 63 games in the regular season. They are without their captain, Patrice Bergeron. He did not make the trip to Florida, dealing with an undisclosed injury, because of course it's undisclosed because it's hockey.
Yep.
And they don't tell you what's really wrong with guys. But no Bergeron for games 3 and 4. That is a big loss for the Bruins.
Yeah, that's tough. Again, Boston loses. It doesn't matter if they have or don't have Patrice Bergeron. I don't care if it goes 7 or what. If they do not win the Stanley Cup, this has been a major disappointment of the season.
There is a belief, a long-held belief, that winning the President's Cup is more curse than blessing. Ask the Tampa Bay Lightning, who won it in 2019 and then got swept out of the first round of the playoffs by Columbus. Trying to remember the last President's Cup winning team, President's Trophy. Sorry, not the President's Cup. That's something different. That's a golf thing. Yeah. The President's Trophy, if you type in President's Trophy, Google autofills winners and curse. So it is very much believed that this is a bit of a curse. The last time the President's Trophy winner, which goes, by the way, to the team with the best record in the NHL, best regular season record. The last time the team with the best regular season record won the Stanley Cup was 2013, the Chicago Blackhawks. The last time it happened before that was 2008. Before that, you have to go back to 2002. So
doesn't happen all that often.
Yes. Once in the last 15 years, if the Bruins don't do it this year, the team with the best record, the President's Cup winner, and only one other time did that team even make the Stanley Cup final.
Wow.
In fact, in 6 of the last 7 seasons, the team failed to even reach the conference. No, all 7 of the last 7 seasons. Teams failed to reach the conference finals.
Wow. That's pretty crazy, honestly.
Yeah. You would think it would be a huge advantage, right? You were the best team for 82 games.
That's hockey, though.
That is hockey.
And that's especially playoff hockey. Wow, that is wild. Game of the night for you in either sport?
Obviously, I'll have an interest in Nuggets Timberwolves. We'll see if Denver can defeat human nature and play good basketball for 4 quarters. Because if they do that, they should be able to handle Minnesota. That's not a real good team. They're not real functional. Karl Anthony Towns is just not showing up for this playoff series. I think Denver
quotes
should win.
From 2014 through 23.
Right. But the most fascinating game I really do believe is Bruins-Panthers, because what if the Bruins go down 2-1 without their captain?
Yeah, it'd be pretty wild. I've got some significant interest on Boston to beat Atlanta tonight in the NBA postseason. And give me the Wild over the Stars as my NHL pick for you tonight. Continuing on with our 580 Sports Talk headline for today. How about a transfer portal update? We don't have a portal sounder. I don't really know what that would be.
Would you like a siren?
Sure. Yeah, that works.
I'm looking for a siren. I don't know if we have a
I thought
siren.
you had one queued up.
No, man, like, these are hard to read.
Yeah, we got to do some cleaning.
Yeah.
Our pal Marco Marquez, once upon a time, put a bunch of them in there, but now there's a lot, and they're just kind of hard to read.
What is this one? Oh, it doesn't even let me click on it.
Doesn't even click. Bummer. What is it listed as?
Got him. It would have been a good one.
Yeah, that's the Vine or whatever. Got him.
Yeah, it must not be in the system anymore. That's
devastating. Truly.
Sorry.
Ooh, that's a good one. Ooh, next time we do a Royals ticket giveaway with trivia questions, keep that one up.
Yes.
That'll be our no buzzer. Anyway, let's get to an update from the college basketball transfer portal. Not a whole lot of movement with KU and K-State. On the KU front, Hunter Dickinson is in Lawrence this weekend for his official visit. He has also visited Maryland, Georgetown. He's allegedly taking one to Kentucky, maybe Villanova as well. It's still very much up in the air, as Michael Swain told us all the way back on Tuesday during Jayhawk Weekly. No other movement there. On the K-State front for things, they are reportedly getting a lot of momentum behind their pursuit of Tyler Perry, the standout from North Texas, who is narrowing down his potential outcomes, although he is in Oxford, Mississippi this weekend for an official visit with Chris Beard and Ole Miss. Max Asmus still appears to be 50-50 between Texas and K-State. He is in Austin this weekend for an official visit. Actual big news, though, from the transfer portal today, a couple of big gets for Gonzaga. They landed 2 players today, Ryan Nemhard from Creighton, as well as Graham Ike from Wyoming. We'll start with Ike. He was at one point considered, it might be a guy KU is very interested in. Then Hunter Dickinson went in the portal, and suddenly there was no more buzz about Graham Ike to Kansas. Then it was expected that Providence was the favorite to get him. There was even at one point 2 weeks ago an erroneous report that he had committed to Kim English in Providence. That fell through. Gonzaga put on, sorry for the pun, the full court press. They end up getting the 7-footer from Wyoming. He will replace Drew Timme. As for Ryan Nemhard, Creighton's point guard, good player, very solid player. It was long expected when he entered the portal he was going to end up at Arizona. That is because the guy who recruited his brother, Andrew, to go to Gonzaga, that's Tommy Lloyd, who's now the head coach at Arizona. People were even calling him on the boards, if you will, Tampering Tommy, because they assumed this had been done months ago. Well, today, Mark Few and Gonzaga got it done. They get the commitment instead from Ryan Nemhard. So they've added their new point guard and their new starting 5 for next year. In Gonzaga, losing Drew Timme is going to hurt. There is no replacing maybe the best player in your program's history. But adding a starting caliber big man and what would have been a top 3, top 2 point guard in the Big East to your team, that's a big win for Gonzaga.
Yeah, that's a big deal. That is Gonzaga reloading in a way that they needed to reload, because obviously they lose Drew Timme. They also lose Julian Strother. So they're 2 best players, and they suffered in the backcourt this past year. They were not as good in the guard court as they had been in past years because they've had so many great point guards there over the years, going back to Dan Dickow. You go back that far, Josh Perkins, Jalen Suggs, by so many great point guards. Andrew Nemhard.
Yes.
And, Ryan's brother. They didn't have that guy last year, and they crashed out in the Sweet 16. Well, now they got that guy again in Ryan Nemhard.
Similarly, Arizona now not in a great spot, because as much as I like to make fun of Kirk Kriisa, they were winning with him, and he was their point guard. And now he is gone. And Tubelis, their best player, trying out the NBA draft. I believe he kept his eligibility.
I think you're right.
I believe he kept that open. But if he has a good combine and gets a good report from a team, he's probably not coming back. He was a really good player in the Pac-12 last year. You strike out on your biggest target, a guy everyone thought you were going to get, suddenly you're not in an especially good spot. No. And I don't like Arizona, so I don't really feel bad about that. But that's a tough spot to be in, to strike out on your biggest target.
Next 580 Sports Talk headline for me, we've got some new rules coming to college football next year. The NCAA has approved rules changes proposed earlier this year. And the most notable of those changes will allow the clock to run after first downs are achieved. So no longer will you have the stopping of the clock after a first down. The clock will continue to run, much like when you're watching an NFL game. That has been a rule that has differentiated college football from the NFL since 1968. According to Steve Shaw, who is the secretary editor of the Rules Committee, allowing the clock to run is expected to reduce the number of plays by an average of 7 per game.
I do want to add this, because I think it is important. The stopped clock after a first down is going to stay in the final 2 minutes, which I don't believe was initially reported unless I missed that. But that is, I believe, still part of the rule. So for, what would that be, 56 minutes of the game, it'll be just like the NFL. Clock keeps running after a first down, but final 2 minutes, they will stop it to reset the chains still. So you still get a little bit of that differential, but it'll speed up the vast majority of the game.
Also, penalties that occur at the end on the final play of the first and third quarter will roll over into the next quarter. There will no longer be untimed downs at the end of each quarter, just the second and the fourth.
Which is good because that rule was dumb.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense.
It is also interesting to note that Division III athletics has pushed back on this rule change to the point where the Division III Management Council has announced federated playing rules for Division III football, essentially separate rules from Division I and Division II under NCAA rules.
That's interesting.
So the new NCAA Constitution includes a provision that calls for flexibility at the divisional level in a way that maybe it didn't before. So now Division III is going to have some different rules to it.
Why do you know why there's been pushback as our D3 insider?
I can't tell you why there's been pushback regarding the stoppage of the clock. I can tell you about some other rules that Division III has really pushed for regarding allowing a student athlete to continue to practice but not compete during a time in which a season of participation waiver or hardship waiver request is being reviewed. So if a player is looking for like an extra year of eligibility or applying for a red shirt and they're in NCAA legislative limbo, they could still practice, if not participate in games. They've got some other stuff here. Be frank, it's not real exciting. It's not real germane to football, and it's not real germane to anything outside of Division III. But I did find that to be interesting, that Division III would really want to keep the rule that the clock keeps rolling or the clock stops rolling when there's a first down.
Maybe it's a personnel thing. Like, we don't have enough people to do this properly, so we're just going to keep it the way it goes right now. We don't have to buck the system.
According to Dennis Dodd's story at ESPN.com, a source close to the rules-making process says we're kind of in uncharted waters with Division III, and sources say it's still possible Division III could eliminate clock stoppages on first down at a future date. The thing about stopping, and even inside the final 2 minutes, I don't like it because, I mean, I guess I like that it differentiates the college game from the pro game.
Yeah.
And I like the differences between the college game and the pro game. Like that's why I like them both so much. But it really does change end game strategies in a way that makes it harder to defend with a lead.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I think you could make the counter argument. You probably see less prevent defense, which I think leads to more good football.
Yeah.
Because the offenses then have more time and you can't just sag back and give up 10 yards, give up 15 yards, give up 10 yards.
Because the clock is going to keep rolling.
Yeah.
The team's out of timeout. Yeah.
So
fair counterpoint. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm in agreement with you that I prefer having different rules. I like that the game is the same, but certain rules are different. I like having 1 foot versus 2 foot for catch rules. I like that the clock was a little bit different. I don't think everything needs to be completely homogenized. I know some people prefer that. I know that I don't, but so be it. I'm not surprised this came. I guess I will say that. Although I will, as much as this is probably going to knock a few minutes off of game times, I saw some folks say, oh, thank God, no more 4-hour CBS games. Have you heard of commercials?
Yeah, that's why those games are so long. It's the commercial load is so vast.
Because it's not quite like the NFL where, all right, every single broadcast is uniform. We have 10 TV timeouts. We have 10 for every game, same number in the first half, same number in the second half. It is all the same. College isn't like that because different conferences have different media rules and rights and agreements, and the networks are all different. CBS, we got a spiked ball. All right, 40 seconds, throw an ad in. Like, that's essentially how the CBS games work. Yes. I don't think this changes that at all.
Yes, the real rule change that needs to come into effect in college football is to do away from the touchdown, timeout, kickoff, timeout. Like, please fire that rule into the sun.
Yeah.
Like, ban that entirely.
And it sucks for fans, too, at the games because it just gets so slow. I remember when KU really sucked in football, hating that when I'd go watch a game when they'd actually have like an FS1 instead of a regional network game. He goes, oh my God, just go, just play. I want to get out of here. Let me punish myself and then get out.
You don't realize, I don't think, the full extent of how bad that is if you're watching on TV because you can just get up and move around. But like when you're at a game, that touchdown, 2-minute 40-second TV timeout, followed by the kickoff, followed by another 2-minute 40-second TV timeout.
Mm-hmm.
That's one play, and it might not even really be a play. It might be a touchback.
Yeah.
In 6 minutes of real time.
And football's not necessarily a nonstop go sport, even in college, unless you're watching 2014 Oregon. That's not really what football at any level is. So to have that much downtime on top of the already baked in downtime that's just part of the sport of football, when guys are lining up, huddling, whatever, it just slows down so much. And it is bad. That'll do it for today's 580 Sports Talk headlines. We're going to get to a commercial break, but on the other side of this timeout, we'll look ahead to Royals Angels this weekend, specifically tonight. Ohtani on the mound. We'll talk about it next on 580 Sports Talk. This wasn't really headline worthy, but Drew Smyly of the Chicago Cubs today took a perfecto into the 8th inning. We haven't had a perfect game since 2012.
Yeah, Felix Hernandez.
Yeah, been a long time. Although there is a perfect game on this date in history. Do you know who?
Is it Philip Humber?
It's Philip Humber of the Chicago White Sox. This date, 2011. The most forgettable, not just perfect game, I think that's the most forgettable no-hitter in baseball history.
Yeah, it really might be. Or at least the most forgettable guy to do it.
Yeah, because he only lasted like one more year in the majors, and it was gone.
I just remember the final out being a pitch that got away from the catcher, but didn't look like a strike, or did the batter check his swing? I don't remember if he checked his swing or if he thought it was a ball and it got called a strike, and he stood at the plate to argue a bit, and that cost him a chance to probably get on base.
Yep. Yeah, it was kind of a wonky ending. Yeah, he pitched in the majors after that 2 more seasons. One with the White Sox, one with the Astros, including 2013 when he went 0-8 with a 7.90 ERA in Houston.
I saw somebody with a Philip Humber White Sox jersey at a Wichita Wingnuts game.
Nice.
In 2014.
That rules. That's awesome.
It does. It's absolutely awesome.
So the Cubs, they blew out the Dodgers today. That was also awesome. 13-0. They blew them out. And Drew Smyly had a perfect game into the 8th inning with 1 out, a slow roller down the left field line. And when I say slow roller, I mean, what did you tell me? 33 miles an hour off the bat?
33 miles an hour off the bat.
It was just trickling down the line. It would have been a tough play. It would have been very hard for either Drew Smyly or his catcher, Yan Gomes, to scoop it up and throw to first. So it may have been a hit anyway. But they never got a chance because Yan Gomes ran into Drew Smyly and jumped on his back like a little kid trying to get a piggyback ride. Just to hit him with a flying clothesline, no play at first base, and that is how the perfect game ended. With a 19-foot base hit.
Huge bummer, also extremely funny.
Yeah, if this wasn't the Cubs, I would be laughing. I would have just been laughing the entire game.
It does. It looks like Yan Gomes is like trying to take him out, like neutralizing a threat.
You will not. Oh, my God.
Smyly wasn't going to throw him out anyway, I don't think.
Yeah, it would have been tight. Maybe you get a little...
but it would have been fun to find out.
Yeah, that's the thing. It just sucks to not know. You always want to know if it's going to happen.
The most Cub thing would have been if Smyly had been injured on the play. Like if he twisted his knee or...
He was a little slow to get up. I kind of was worried that was going to happen.
Rolled the ankle a little bit. But no, just a really great outing and shutout ball for Drew Smyly. No immortality today.
At one point in the bottom of the 5th with the perfect game in play and the Cubs were just rolling them, he was sent down to the tunnel and with a trainer, and the Cubs commentary team said, "Uh-oh, well, what happened here? Hope he's okay." Well, it turns out I'm pretty sure he was just going to warm up because the inning had taken like 20 minutes. He just needed to go warm up and take care of that because the Cubs were raking. Awesome. 12-8 so far this year. Anyway, that's beside the point. We do have Royals baseball coming up after a day off yesterday and no afternoon, late afternoon evening game on Wednesday, although they lost earlier in the day. Royals Angels from Angel Stadium in Anaheim coming up tonight. Game 1 of the series, beginning a 10-game road trip to end the month of April, a month in which they will have 1 home win. The Angels will be sending Shohei Ohtani to the mound tonight. Now, we do have some breaking news that the Angels will be down one of their starters, Logan O'Hoppe. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yes, it is.
It's just O'Hoppe.
It is O'Hoppe.
He is going to the injured list.
Well, that's too bad.
With what appears to be a shoulder injury. So the Angels will not have him.
That means they are down to 3 regulars who have been above average hitters so far this season.
Good stuff. Mike Trout.
Yeah.
Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah.
And who would be third?
Hunter Renfroe.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, Hunter Renfroe crushing the ball like he normally does. Also looks a lot like Mike Trout.
Yeah, he does.
Like in the face.
I saw him trotting, in fact, once. One of the nights I was actually able to watch the Angels, he hit a home run. And I said, Trout. I yelled it. I said, Trout. And then I thought, oh, that's not him.
No.
And it was that outfield camera as they come from first to second.
Yeah.
That's him. Oh, that's not him. That is not Mike Trout who hit that home run. I'm excited that Shohei Ohtani's pitching tonight.
Yeah, that's
cool.
That's super awesome. If you have a chance to watch tonight's Royals game, watch it because of the guy on the mound against the Royals. Watch Shohei Ohtani do baseball stuff. There's no better experience in baseball right now than that.
I'm still not over 2018, March or April of 2018, when you and I were going to go cover a game at the K.
Mm-hmm.
It was the first time I'd ever covered a Royals game in person.
Yes.
And it got rained out. It got snowed out.
No, it got colded out. There was
right.
no precipitation, but it was in the 20s.
Yeah, that's right.
And they just decided to bang the game. Like an hour before first pitch, they were like, yeah, we're not going to play today. Because I think Ohtani was scheduled to start.
Mm-hmm. He was.
And, they protected his arm. I still have not received reimbursement for my gas and my tolls from Rob Manfred for that.
There is no... Okay, here's the question. Because the NFL is a little bit different because we are just in a football-obsessed country. Is there any athlete in any sport right now who is more must-see than Shohei Ohtani? Like, we talk about the NBA as a league of stars. It is a league where, especially younger fans, follow players more than they follow teams. Is there any player who is as must-see in person right now? They're coming to my city. I will get a ticket at all costs. Anyone more than Shohei Ohtani? I don't think there is.
If LeBron were 32 and not 38,
yeah,
maybe there's a different answer to this question. But the other thing,
or if you knew this was his last year,
the other thing too about going like a must see, like when you turn on the TV or when they're in town, you buy tickets, is that generally you're going to see Shohei Ohtani because he DHs, and on the days that he pitches, sometimes he'll DH, other times he won't, but he's in the lineup.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't always get that with the stars of the NBA. Yeah, I don't know. There's certainly not anybody for me where I like would make a plan to watch him play. Like if I know he's pitching, I want to watch that game. There's nobody in baseball like that. There's no starting pitcher in baseball like that right now.
No, like I love Clayton Kershaw. I didn't, when he got his 200th strikeout the other night, I wasn't dying to go, or his 200th win. I'm sorry. I wasn't like, I have to watch it. I must see it. Oh no, I'll catch him next time.
I felt that way about Prime Kershaw.
Yeah.
I didn't have to like strain to watch him because I knew he'd pitch and beat the Rockies at least once a year.
Right.
So I get to see that.
Yeah. No, I don't think there's any American athlete who is more must see right now.
In the four major sports, I don't think so either. I think it's Ohtani. I think he's the guy.
And I think you could argue Patrick Mahomes, but again, football's different. Like we consume football so differently. Every single game sells out.
Mm-hmm.
You've got tons of in-town and out-of-town fans who come to games. It's we just consume it so much differently.
And the scarcity sells it too.
Right.
But there are only 17 of them each year, where you get 162 chances to see Ohtani and 30 odd chances to see him pitch, but they're not to be wasted.
No. Royals going to win this weekend? I'm going to say yes. I will jump in front and I will say yes because they're playing the Los Angeles Angels. The Angels will at some point be leading a game 5-0 in this weekend series, and they will lose because that's just what they do. They choke and they don't have any depth, and their pitching outside of the best athlete in the world is not very good.
Yeah, they've got two lefties going on the weekend. Tyler Anderson Saturday and Reed Detmers on Sunday. Scheduled starters for the Royals in those games are Zach Greinke and Jordan Lyles, respectively.
Sick.
Royals should line up pretty well against left-handed pitching. They got a lot of right-handed power. Eddie Olivares is better against left-handed pitching. Franmil Reyes is better against left-handed pitching. I think they should line up pretty well against left-handed pitchers. I think they'll get one on the weekend. Just one, but I think they'll get one.
It would have to be the Lyles start, right? Because Zach Greinke, not especially good on the road as of late. That's been a little bit of an issue for him, although his last home start wasn't all that great either.
We had a couple of responses from the text line from the 785 in regards to those must-see athletes. We have one suggestion for Ronaldo. Quick, who does he play for?
Is he still with Juventus? No. He's with Blood Money Inc. Yeah, he's in Saudi Arabia.
Yes, yeah. Al Nasser in the Saudi Arabian League. Never mind must-see. You can't see him. He's out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah, I ain't paying them money.
And then another suggestion for Sidney Crosby, who I don't think is a top 5 player in the NHL anymore. Maybe in his prime. Like, if there's anybody who's that in the NHL now, it's Connor McDavid.
Yeah, McDavid.
And he plays in Edmonton, which...
Yeah. Like, but maybe Bedard becomes that? Connor Bedard?
Maybe Connor Bedard becomes that if he gets into a major American market.
Here's an interesting question about Sidney Crosby. Would he have even had that title over Ovechkin when they were both in their prime? Because I think Crosby overall better player, but Ovechkin was the score.
Ovechkin's the goal scorer.
Yeah,
he probably did. Like Crosby, better two-way player, not even close, and like an all-time great player. But like for the show, for the pure spectacle of it,
might have been Ovi.
Yeah, Ovechkin might get a hat trick. He was going to camp out at the left slot, right on the faceoff dot, and get like 5 chances with a one-timer per game.
Real quick before we get to a commercial break, can I interest you in career numbers for Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout against the Kansas City Royals?
I know Trout's are pretty good. I remember he hit a home run. I was in person to see it off of, I want to say it was Junis. Oh my God, he hit it so far.
I know exactly the one you're talking about. Was it left field?
Yes.
Yeah, I know exactly which one you're talking about.
That was the game that started snowing. I think the Royals even won.
Mike Trout, I've been very lucky to see him, I think 3 times in my life. Oh my God, he's so good. I saw him hit a first pitch home run against the White Sox in Chicago one time. That ruled. In his career, 53 games against the Kansas City Royals, 238 plate appearances. He has a 339 batting average, 454 on base, and a 590 slug. That is an OPS over 1,000. And he has hit 13 home runs with 34 RBIs and has 10 doubles. Stole 7 bases, too, earlier in his career. Shohei Ohtani, smaller sample size against the Royals. Just 18 career games. He is hitting .390 with a .507 on base and an .814 slug. That is an OPS of 1320. If that was your entire career, you would be the best player in the history of baseball.
Right.
He gets on base more than half the time he comes to the plate against the Royals. He has 5 doubles, a triple, 6 home runs, 21 RBIs against the Royals in his career. He's the best player in baseball, and he has been better against the Royals than any other team. Yeah, I've got his career split. No, I'm sorry. In 2 games against the Mets, he had a 1,000 slug. But against teams he's played for more than one series, he has been better against the Royals than anyone else. Kind of a trend for good players in the last 6 years. Let's get to a commercial break. We'll come back, tell you what's on tap for the weekend here on 580 Sports Talk. Finishing up this Feel Good Friday edition of 580 Sports Talk, Brendan and Dan here with you. Don't forget Royals baseball coming up tonight, 8 o'clock pregame, 8:38 first pitch from Anaheim, Angels versus the Royals on the Royals Radio Network here on the sports voice of Kansas. All right, Dan, what's on tap for you this weekend?
Nuggets game 3 tonight, Avalanche game 3 tomorrow night, Nuggets game 4 on Sunday. I would love for the Nuggets to sweep the Timberwolves. I could do with a sweep.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Like, for my physical health and getting some sleep, for my mental health, I could do with a sweep. I think it's still going to be a gentleman's sweep. I think Minnesota's going to get one.
See, I disagree. Anthony Edwards has played some of the best basketball of his entire life, and the Nuggets just decided not to play for about 18 minutes the other night, and it still didn't matter. And the Nuggets still won. Like, they had to get the worst possible game from Denver and another historic performance from their best player, and it did not matter.
Their head coach, Michael Malone, did say, hey, we've played 8 quarters and 7 of them have been really good. And if they play like 8 more quarters like the 7 good ones they played so far, they should probably be in good shape.
Worry level with the Avs?
We're back down to a 1 out of 10. They're going to win the series.
It was a nice comeback the other night.
Yeah, last night. Yeah, they found their sea legs. They got big Cale Makar going. They got big Val going. Val Chuskin scored a goal. One of my favorite players.
Was that a pun on playing the Kraken?
No,
they got their sea legs.
Could have been. Yeah, it could have been. It should have been. It'll be wild though to go into Seattle and see what that crowd is like. first playoff games in Seattle in that franchise's history. I think they'll probably split the next two. Avs win game 5, and then they win game 6. Kraken are good.
Yeah. I mean,
it's not going to, like, this is not a cakewalk for the Avs, but they'll win the series.
Look, when you're talking about the most feared home court advantages in all of sports, you're thinking, Allen Fieldhouse. You're thinking the Climate Pledge Arena, OKC when they were really good. Nah, the Climate Pledge Arena. Come on. No, that should be fun. I think the Nuggets are going to get a sweep. I do think they will.
Your lips to God's ears, pal. What about you? What are you fired up for this weekend?
Going to be a lot of good NBA. I'll be watching plenty of the Cubs because we're good, apparently. That's nice.
Yeah, enjoy your good baseball team.
Yeah, a little more than I was expecting, so that's nice.
I say through gritted teeth.
There's 1 week left in the regular season in the best professional football league currently going. The XFL Week 10 is here. Battlehawks, win and you're in. All you got to do is beat the worst football team ever organized, the Orlando Guardians. Knock them off. You are in to the playoffs. Should have won last week and embarrassed ourselves against the Sea Dragons and Ben DiNucci and a Ron Zook coached defense. Just get it done against the worst team in the league coming up tomorrow. Battlehawks are in. And then we get to take on the DC Defenders in the first round, only round of the XFL playoffs.
Are they the best team, the Defenders?
Yeah, I think so.
Man, I knew I should have placed a futures bet on the Defenders.
They're good. Houston is good. The 3 best teams by a lot are Houston, DC, and St. Louis in some order. Everyone else is either really bad or not actually scary at all. I think Dallas or Arlington, will be your second South playoff team. The South is bad and a real stinky division.
All right.
This has been your XFL insight for the week.
XFL insider Brendan Dworzinski.
I will tell you what, though, the 2 best crowds on a week-in, week-out basis are St. Louis, as Michael Miller told Jake and Fulton on Mic'd Up last week, and DC, because DC plays in a soccer stadium.
Yeah, they got 18th. Yeah, they're not in FedEx Field. They're at the Audi Park, I think it's called.
Yeah, and it's great. They fill the crowd every week.
18,000. Yeah, the big beer snakes.
People
are into watching good football in Washington, and who knew?
Not surprising that the best team in the league, you know who their quarterback is? XFL legend Jordan Ta'amu.
Of course.
Ta'amu time.
That's why I should have bet on him.
You should have. The best quarterback in the league.
Jordan Ta'amu, spring football icon.
He really is. I saw a Jordan Ta'amu jersey in St. Louis a couple weekends ago. That was awesome. We've got to get to one final commercial break here on the show today and this week, and we'll finish things up with the final word after this on 580 Sports Talk. What a week it's been on 580 Sports Talk. Time to wrap things up with the final word heading into the weekend, Dan.
Kris Bubic spoke to the media earlier today after it was announced he would need Tommy John surgery that would cost him the rest of the 2020 season and an unknown to this point chunk of 2024. And one of the things he said was, quote, anytime you tweak a repertoire or add certain pitches or change your mindset or change your intent, all of that kind of comes together. Sometimes your body adapts to the stress well, sometimes it doesn't. That's kind of how it goes. It's the risk you accept as a pitcher. It's not that this is all that uncommon in the game anymore. No regrets in terms of tweaking stuff and changing stuff. Just trying to bring out the best version of myself. And that's the worst part of this injury for Kris Bubic. Not just that he was pitching well, that he had appeared to have reinvented himself and actualizing himself into the version of the pitcher the Royals thought they were getting when they drafted him. And now he's on the shelf for a good long time. Get well soon, Kris. We hope to see you back on the mound in 2024.
Yep, hopefully very, very soon. Final word from me for today. Hey, KU, why don't a couple more of those transfers this weekend? That'd be nice. Harrison Ingram, what are you up to? You got a commitment in you? Hunter Dickinson, come on, you don't need to go see Kentucky. I'll tell you all you need to know about Lexington. It's not as good as Lawrence. Get a couple more in. We're feeling good going into next week, which, by the way, NFL Draft Week. We will have wall-to-wall coverage of the draft. We're going to be at the draft, in fact, on Thursday and Friday. So much coverage. We'll talk all about it on Monday with Matt Verderam. We will get to our final mock draft Monday. We'll have our mock drafts next week. Myself, Dan, Fulton, Jake will have all of them. We'll break it all down for you. That's coming up next week. Don't forget Royals baseball tonight. Pregame at 8 o'clock and first pitch at 8:38. Shohei Ohtani on the bump for the Angels, taking on the Royals tonight. Until Monday, when we join you again for Dan Lucero, I'm Brendan Dworzinski. Appreciate you, as always, for listening to 580 Sports Talk.